Good evening. Good evening and happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to everyone. Welcome. Welcome to a special edition of The Wise TV. And as you can see by the title, it is called The Alpha Male with special panelist Anthony Unplugged. So we will take a few moments for a little bit of house cleaning before he arrives, and hopefully there are no last minute changes, as we know in life that can happen. So one, I would like to again thank all of my members that should be up and running this week. So thumbs up to that. Also, thank you to my mods and subscribers. Now for mods, I need to make sure that when you are in the platforms and in the chat, that you make sure that you put out my link, especially the one for lupus awareness. Again, just a quick posting of the link for people to share would be greatly appreciated. And at present, we are at 66%. Hey there, the link is there. If you click it above where you see StreamYard, we'll be ready to go. And welcome to those from Facebook. I anticipate this should be a very interesting interview and conversation. So, if you're ready to learn more about the alpha male, or you have questions or a difference in opinion, join. Leave your comments, and the link is there. Are you able to see the link? It's right above. Let me see if I can't send that to your other location, unless you can get that. I'll go ahead and post it again. Are you able to see the StreamYard? Awesome.
Yeah, I think I'm in.
Welcome.
Hey, welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Sunday.
Welcome. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. Nice to be here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for agreeing to come by and visit. I'm doing good. There's a little bit of an echo.
Yeah, we got an echo.
All of my devices are down, so it should be clear. What about, okay, that's better.
That's better?
Yes. Okay, so welcome everyone, and this is Anthony Unplugged, also podcaster of the It's Raining Men podcast. So Anthony, welcome to both YouTube and Facebook. Let's begin with a little bit of bio. Tell us a little bit about yourself. who you are, where you're coming in from, your basis for your content, and your mission. And I will mute my mic.
All right. So my name is Anthony Marsh, also known as Anthony Unplugged. On Instagram, my handle is Anthony_Unplugged. I am a happily married father of 3, searching for sister wife number 2. No, I'm just playing. My wife is doing it. But I am a career professional. I am an HVAC mechanic. I also run my own HVAC business, as well as a clothing line, and I'm also a venture capitalist in Los Angeles, California. We just actually moved up to Orange County. I'm in Santa Ana right now. The basis for mine is because I am a survived divorcee who was pretty much run through the divorce machine by my first wife, and understood at that point that men in general have to earn their value in this world, and this world kind of throws that at us early on in life. When we messed up, we are held accountable 100% for our actions, and being run through the divorce machine was probably the biggest wake-up call to that. Understanding that once you enter into a marriage and you don't have your stuff together, if a woman takes her right to change her mind, which a woman always deserves the right to change her mind, she can become an entirely different person in divorce court that you married, and is pretty much put in a position to take you for everything you have. And that's what happened to me. So my content was kind of created around that, spreading a message of framing yourself so that you don't have to go through that ever with somebody, and that you can bring a partner into your frame rather than step into their frame and allow them to always have the upper hand on you. And my platform and what I put out is not misogynistic. It's not about MGTOW, none of that, men going their own way. I don't believe in that. I think men that say they're going their own way are sent their own way by women because they haven't framed themselves correctly, and women just don't want them in general. I'm all about teaching guys how to become masculine men that the majority of all women want to be with, even the ones that don't know. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what I do.
Awesome. So let me ask you this. From your perspective, what is your definition of a masculine man and an effeminate man? Because there's been a lot of conversation about that and basically differentiating the actual definition of that. I believe many have different perspectives, but this seems like your niche from the content that I've seen thus far. So I'm going to let you answer that from your perspective.
Before I get into your question, if I may, just so people kind of have a gist of the content she's speaking of. The content she's speaking of is actually on my podcast Instagram, which is It's Raining Men _podcast. It's ITSREININGMEN _podcast. That's my podcast content. My personal content isn't exactly reflective of that all the time, but I truly believe a masculine man, and this is just from, I don't like to use the word traditional, that kind of gets thrown around a lot and redefined a lot, but I'll use the term natural. A naturally masculine man, when left to his own devices, is a man whom is typically raised in a nuclear family by a mother, father, Mother being the nurturer for the first about 9 years of his life as a boy, and then from about 9 through adolescence into teenage and early adult years is honed by his father, kind of molded and shaped into a man by his father, and taught by his father how to interact with a woman and with women, how to treat women properly, how to be a gentleman, but also how to be a cold, calm, calculated, aggressive male. And I think those things I call natural because that's what naturally masculine man has had to be for about 1.7 million years. If you're talking to an evolutionist, or an evolutionary expert, for 1.7 million years, a man has had to be naturally aggressive, but he's also had to be controlled in his aggression, not emotionally available all the time, not emotionally open like a lot of people are suggesting men should do nowadays. Men have had to be stoic in their emotional approach to things, cool, calm, collected, calculated with their emotions and with their actions, whereas women have been allowed to be the emotional, the more emotionally open of the two, because when you're emotionally open as a woman, you tend to state problems that are present more. And then as a emotionally calculated, naturally masculine man, a man can then think about the problems you just stated and then solve them. And see, that's the perfect balance that I truly believe men and women present to each other, is that women are awesome at finding and stating what the problems in life are, and men are awesome at solving them. And I think that reflects in society and how we've developed. Without each other, we wouldn't be anywhere. But without those two natural components, we would crumble as a society. And an effeminate man is pretty much a man who puts himself in the natural place of a woman, being emotionally unstable, being emotionally open all of the time and not stoic and calculated. The idea that we should promote to men to constantly be emotionally available, I think, is detrimental, because it takes the naturally masculine approach that men use to create the society, the stable society we live in, and it tells men to basically throw it to the wayside. And an effeminate man, you can see it with men who are openly effeminate. I don't want to mince words or get too into the red zone of offending people, but that's kind of what we do anyway, even if we're stating facts in the realm that I dwell in. But with openly effeminate men, let's say like openly gay men, especially gay men who are openly more feminine, these men clearly act more like the natural females you see it rather than natural males. And when you ask a man to be a man who is not gay, and not prone to being effeminate, when you ask him to be more openly emotional, you're kind of pushing him away from what he's naturally drawn into with his heterosexual nature. And it creates this dangerous recipe for mental instability, which I believe is why you're seeing so many men choosing suicide is the way out of all of this. And that's why I'm here. That's why my platform is here, so I can talk to men and tell them suicide is not the way. The way can be found in life. There are people who have your back, who understand what you're going through, who have answers for you that can help drag you out of that dark place, that sunken place, that drives men into suicide. Because the suicide rates for men are crazy high. Men and boys are killing themselves these days. And the suicide rates for women are climbing, which shows you that maybe the recipes that they're telling us aren't working.
So let me ask you something, sir. How would you like for me to address you, Anthony or Anthony Unplugged?
Oh, Anthony's great.
Anthony. Okay. And
Anthony
your
always sounds more elegant, especially coming off the tongue of a woman.
All right. Well, Anthony, what are the traditional, if applicable, warning signs of the description you just provided of those who may be in trouble for suicide?
Oh.
Or is that something that is noticeable?
I think it is. I think we can go, in my lifetime, I think we can go as far back as the Columbine High School, like the shooting at Columbine, if you know what I'm speaking about.
Absolutely.
You who don't know, the Columbine High School shooting, those of you who don't know it, you can Google it. It was a high school shooting in, I believe, 1999, 98, that took place where two young high school students dressed in trench coats, who today you might identify as incels, went into a high school and just opened fire with semi-automatic weapons on high school children and killed quite a few people. It was very tragic. But incidences like that typically are committed by young men whom have shown early signs. Usually they're loners. They're not competitive males, which we do know as a society, just with the track record, when males compete, when males learn to compete and are honed to compete in sports, in academics, etc., they tend to be less depressed. They tend to be more happy. They tend to have a better social crowd that they can hover around and dwell around. But when young boys tend to be loners, there's typically reasons why. And those kids from Columbine, I think both of their parents were career professionals, gone a lot, which means that there's not a whole lot of focus on what the kids are doing or how they're growing up, which is important, which is why for so many years, the nuclear family, where the father went off to work to brave the stresses of society, and the mother stayed home and cultivated the household, it worked. Because there's always a parent present to let that child know they're loved, to let that child know they're provided for, they're protected. And I think if you look at Columbine, if you look at Santana High School that happened in San Diego, to the most recent shootings, these young men are typically loners who are not doing well with women. A lot of it has to do with these incels, these involuntary celibate young men who aren't doing well with women. They blame everything on the Chads and the Beckys of society. Chads and Beckys are kind of words, that we've thrown around in comedy, comically. I've thrown it around before, But when someone throws it around in a serious manner, it typically means the guys and the women who are winning in life, who are competing, who are out in the world competing. The guys who are the jocks, who are out competing, who are out to outdo the next guy so that he can get the girl, or so that he can win the game, or so that he can, can advance the university, or so that he can get the wife and have the car and the house, the American dream, quote unquote. And then the Beckys, the girls that look pretty, dress pretty, that want to compete with other women, because that's pretty much the nature of humanity, is that we are a competitive species. And when people compete to win and not compete to get second place trophies or competition trophies, they feel better about their competition. And if they lose in that competition, they tend to build themselves up to come back stronger. But when they're constantly told, hey, you can't even win, even when you're told you get a participation trophy, they tend to blame everything on everyone. Everyone's fault but theirs. And I think you can always see this in young men. And I speak anecdotally because when I was a kid, when I was in middle school, I used to get picked on a lot, because I had a head full of curly hair. I didn't know how to dress. Like I just come from California. I moved to the East Coast. We didn't dress the same. So I got picked on a lot, especially for the way I spoke, because I spoke with an accent to them, like, because I pronounced my ERs properly, so it was always, oh, he talks white, like that, he must be a coconut or something, right? So I've been in that mind state where I wanted to just blame, everybody for just being me. The thing about it is, you have to look at what's happening to these kids at home. Are these kids in a nuclear family? We live in a society where the nuclear family is being destroyed, it's being torn apart, and it's being uprooted. Or both parents might be there, but we're told that both parents both have to work, especially if they live in a place that has a high cost of living. Both parents got to work. So kids are left to their own devices to fend for themselves, basically raise themselves. And you can always see it when kids can't control their emotions, they react violently. And you'll see it coming. Kids will often start off by killing animals, or they'll start off by cutting themselves. They'll start off by bringing a knife to school. They'll start off by saying things at school that lean towards violence. And these kids are emotionally unstable. They're easily triggered. These males express their emotions openly, like we're told to do by society today. They do it all the time in school, and I've seen it. They express their emotions openly rather than calculate, what emotions make sense and then get rid of the ones that don't. They express their emotions like openly, and they react to things emotionally rather than respond to things calculated. And that's pretty much what Columbine was a reaction to an emotional situation for these young boys. And instead of them really rationally thinking about, like, why are my problems so hard for me to control, they blamed it on society and took it out on society. And I feel like it always has to do with men who are emotionally unstable, not men who are emotionally calculated.
Now, you mentioned the nucleus of a family. In your opinion, does it always, and again, this is your opinion, have to include both a mother and a father? And do they both have to be full-time, meaning doing the mother and father duties, if you will, and spending that quality time to nurture their children? Because in these days and times, for some, depending upon your socioeconomic status, again, with 2022 and the residual effects from 2020, is that possible? Can you still have children that are not in trouble of becoming one of those that, as you just spoke on, perpetrators in heinous acts such as Columbine? And also, do you remember Dylan Ruth? And I believe that was South Carolina. And I will take your answer off.
Sorry, what was that last part? I'm sorry.
No, I was saying I was going to go ahead and put my mic on mute so that you could answer that.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll answer the first part. The last part is, there's a lot to unpack with Dylan Ruth, because I'm actually from South Carolina. So, that was terrible. The first part, yes. Sorry. The first part, no. It is not always necessary. 100% of the time, there are a small percentage of single parents out there who are able to raise children into stable, functioning adult members of society. And I commend those parents 100% because that's a hard job. I wouldn't want that job, period. And I also would not wish that job on anybody. But statistics don't lean towards single parenthood being the best way or even a good way to raise a child into a stable, functioning adult member of society. In fact, the statistics run against it. So can it be done? Yes. It's a possibility, and we see that possibility with a small percentage of people. Those are the outliers, the anomalies. But is it probable? No. And the best way, especially scientifically, and from a scientific perspective, especially if you're doing test studies, you always lean the probabilities. You never lean towards the possibilities if you want to either cure something or prove something works or doesn't work. You always lean towards the probabilities. Will it probably work? Yes. If it's not probable, then it's possible. Will it possibly work? Yeah, it'll possibly work, but it's not good for us to go down that road. We need to lean towards the probability. So the best scenario for any children to be raised in is a nuclear family where mother and father are both present. The greatest success rate is when the father goes to work and earns a stable living and the mother stays home. And there's statistics to prove it. There are also statistics to prove that I think it's like 80% of male prison inmates were raised in a single mother household, which is a terrible statistic to put, into the world, especially in an age when single motherhood is pretty much held on a pedestal and it's promoted as, it's not exactly promoted as something you should do, but it's promoted as something that should be celebrated, when I do not agree with that at all. That's my opinion, but the statistics to back the failure of single motherhood are present for anybody to research, and we shouldn't be celebrating it. We should be shaming it. We shouldn't be shaming the mothers, but we should be shaming people who promote and celebrate single motherhood as something to be celebrated. I do not think that the majority of these mothers want to be single mothers, or want to raise their children without the father, but I do believe that the celebration of it is a bad culture to set, especially when there are statistics to prove single fathers when raising children alone do a better job than mothers. So if we're going to celebrate any single parenthood and we're not celebrating single fathers, we don't even talk about single fathers. In fact, on Mother's Day, they even celebrate single mothers as being fathers, on Father's Day, sorry, which I think is also a celebration of single motherhood. That's not to say men and women, men are better than women. It's just to say there are statistics to prove the success failure rate of single parentage, and we're still celebrating single parentage in certain aspects of media. Do I think that it's possible or plausible in today's times with the inflation rates and with the cost of living for one parent to go to work and then for one parent to stay home? Absolutely. I'm doing it right now. I am an exception to the rule. So I'm not going to use me. I'm not going to use me anecdotally as an example, because like I said, we deal in probabilities. I'm a possibility, I'm an anomaly. I'm a higher earner. My annual income rate from my job alone is $90,000 a year. So I can't use myself, because the average male in the United States makes less than $50,000 a year. The average black male makes less than, I think, $40,000 a year, something like that. It's close to that. So I make over double that. So I can't use myself. But is it possible? Absolutely. Probable? No. And I think a lot of that has to do with the culture that we've supported and we've upheld. It's allowed for this culture of people not understanding how to vote, and I don't want to get into politics, but also not understanding the value in family and where it lies, and what type of family we need to have, and being self-sustainable. But yeah, it's hard. It's really hard in this day and age for that type of nuclear household where the father works, the mother stays home, or vice versa even. And the reason why I say father works, mother stays home, is because women, and there's statistics to prove this as well. Women who work and fathers who stay home are unhappy than when men who go to work and the mother stays home to raise the child. And I do believe a lot of that has to do with a woman's natural hypergamy. Women naturally want to believe that they're dating or marrying across the spectrum or up. They want their value reflected in the man that they've managed to bag. And if that man is staying home while they're going to work and earning, while they're going out into the world and hunting the freaking mastodons and chopping them up with the rest of the tribe, the men who are out in the world, and bringing the food back home, how are they going to look at their husband? A lot of these women don't look at their husband as that hypergamous, stepping stool, or that man who proves their value in the sexual marketplace, which is seen in the divorce rate. 76% of divorces are initiated by women. And career women, typically women who work in the corporate sector, tend to divorce their husbands if their husbands make less than them. So I think it's a telling sign that about a woman's natural instinct. And that doesn't make a woman bad at all. It actually makes a woman a good human being, because she's looking for a partner whom is able to reproduce children, take care of the children, provide for the children for an entire generation. And she's ensuring that by choosing the right male. And that's what gets into the whole alpha beta male thing. As far as Bill and Ruth, so South Carolina is a bit different than like Los Angeles, or I live in Orange County right now. South Carolina, kids out there's a more openly racist culture in South Carolina, let's put it like that. In Southern California, racism out here is covert. It's a lot more covert. It's hidden. You have to kind of be very intelligent to spot it and put somebody on the spot with it. I prefer the type of racism that exists in places like South Carolina, because at least for the most part. But Dylan Roof was an anomaly to where he walked into a predominantly black church and pretended, to be something he wasn't, which was peaceful. And that is something that took culturing, over time. For somebody to do that took culturing. And I think that I don't know his background a whole lot, but I do think that if he, being as young as he did, as he was, planned this out, had this vile vitriol within him to plan something, premeditate something like he did, go in, pretend to be, an operating, functioning, friendly member of this church, and then commit the heinous crimes that he did. I think that was cultivated by maybe his parents. even, and a lot of parents, after something like this happens, will almost disavow their children. They'll disown them. Well, we didn't raise our child to be that way. But we don't know that. Like, are the parents cross-examined? Like, how many times did you say the N-word in your house? Like, and I'm talking about with the hard R. Like, how many times did you talk about, the good old days, So I think Dylan Roof, I think it was a community problem with him. I think he lived in a community that upheld his feelings towards Black people, and which is an anomaly. That's in this day and age. That is not the majority of communities. In this day and age, the majority of communities don't uphold the idea of hating Black people. I just don't believe that. There might be people in that community that dislike Black people or dislike the culture, the culture that people predominantly follow in like lower income neighborhoods, etc. But that's but that's only just because it's different. I don't think though that Dylan Roof's community, I don't think his community was any different than he was, to be honest, aside from like being murderous. I think a lot of his ideas of Black people not only came from his community, but were also upheld by the stereotypes that are upheld in media, So I think it was less of him lashing out emotionally and more of how he was raised, like the people he grew up around. Just because I've seen it, like I personally have seen Ku Klux Klan members, people that I was at house parties with when I lived in South Carolina with, openly admit, like, oh yeah, that buddy over there is a KKK member, and I'm at the same house party with these guys. I've seen some of my Black homies, like cornered, by white kids, and it's the worst culture ever. But it's open out there, and they celebrate this in those communities, which I think is more of a community issue.
So, quick question. You mentioned that you believe that it was premeditated, which I believe that may be the general consensus. So, do you believe that he and others that execute these heinous crimes are actually groomed while they're extremely young, or do they grow into it from what they see and observe around them?
I think both, for sure. With Dylan Roof, I think it was both. With Dylan Roof, I am to the thought that he was groomed by his community, not just his mother and father, maybe his uncles, his friends up the block, just that environment where he comes from. Like I know that area, not well, I know it well enough. I think he was groomed for sure. He was very, very impressionable. Like his age, kind of tells that he's a very impressionable kid who was groomed in a particular way. And kids are a lot of times, and I was like this, when you're raised wrong and you don't have very great role models, you tend to have this mindset of I have nothing to lose. And I just think he was one of those kids who was groomed wrong. He felt, I have nothing to lose, but I also live somewhere where I'm of the privileged class, and there might be some people out there that disagree with me, but I believe in white privilege. And I also believe that those who are privileged don't understand what the hell it means to be privileged. So it's hard explaining it to them, but I also believe that he probably felt some of that. I'm of the privileged class, so, I can do this, especially after, so I believe this happened after Trayvon Martin. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
This was after Trayvon Martin. So I think that
Yes,
also,
correct.
that being in the media probably helped groom it as well. Like, he probably was like, you know what, this guy got away with it. You know, I'm white. You know, I'm white. So I, you know, at most I'll get put in jail. You know, like whatever. And he might even have planned it with one of his community members. You never really know these things, but I think for sure for him it was both. I think for the Columbine kids,
Okay, I think we may have lost our guest for a moment. Might be connection, so let's give it a moment. But again, welcome everyone from both YouTube and Facebook. Welcome our guest, Anthony Unplugged, who is here to speak about the alpha male. Make sure you hit the like button upon entry, and or exit, and share. Thank you. And we will wait until Anthony Unplugged returns. He is on the West Coast, so we will give him some more time to return. So this has been a lot of good information. If you've taken any notes, and right now we're speaking about children that are possibly groomed and the nuclear family, and some of these crimes that are committed by these children who are possibly groomed by parents and those in their communities. If anyone has any comment until our host returns, please make sure you place them there. Or if you would like to come up and share a few words, you're welcome to do that as well. I'll drop the link. And we have Anthony Unplugged back.
at my charger, I didn't realize.
No problem. Welcome back. Thank you. No, I was just speaking to the audience. Oh, no problem. No problem. I will go ahead and go back on mute so you can complete it.
So where was I?
You're
Oh,
good.
yeah. So the kids with Columbine, in like Santana High School, I think incidents like that are a lot like, how can I say? I think incidents like that are a lot different than, you know what? No, I won't say that. I think Columbine might have been an anomaly, where these kids just had too much time alone. They had too much time on their hands to sit and dwell in their very irresponsible thoughts, and not enough guidance. I think a lot of other incidents of violence, like let's say, drive-bys, shootings in urban areas, which don't get the headlines that these mass killings get. Like, I grew up in areas where there were mass killings all the time. It just wasn't called mass killing; it was just called black on black crime. So, and it wasn't publicized because so much of it happens. Like, I guess, I don't know if I would say it's the news not wanting to report it because so much of it happens. I think it's the news not reporting it because it's not as important to them as something like the Dylan Roof shooting, or they want these sensational stories, not something that they know happens a lot and was probably systematic to begin with. But like drive-by shootings, gang shootings, school shootings that involve young black teenagers. I think these shootings a lot of times are just the way they're cultured, the way they're brought up. A lot of times, a lot of these kids, especially the prison rates, are kind of prove it. 80% of male prisoners are from single parent homes where they were raised by a single mother. These kids are cultured into these lifestyles where it's all romanticized. The gang culture when I was growing up was highly romanticized, from anything as different as we'd ever experienced, as Scarface, the Goodfellas, to Godfather, to Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood. Not really Boys in the Hood, because Boys in the Hood still had an underlying message that could be disseminated even by young kids that this is bad, but Menace to Society, everybody wanted to be O-Dog, like everybody wanted to be Scarface, everybody wanted to be the bad guy in these films because they romanticized it. So I think in black communities, black and Latino communities, black communities especially, we're being cultivated by media to believe that these things that are detrimental to our neighborhoods and to our communities and to ourselves is romantic, is good, and it even reflects in music, more so the music of today. Kind of the music that I grew up with was different, where there was a counterculture that was countering, the music that was emerging, making these, this trifling behavior seem romantic, whereas nowadays you don't really have that. It's kind of on the fray. So in our communities, I do believe we're cultured by the TV, by the radio, by the celebrity, and it's often by celebrities and media producers that push a status quo that I believe can be traced to a systematic dismantling of a people. Whereas with these white shootings, where the perpetrator is a white person, I think these are anomalies. I think these are anomaly shootings that aren't necessarily supposed to be happening, where they're seeing kids who are on the receiving end of the destroying of the home and of the family, because that's the best way you destroy people, is you destroy the family. You break the family apart and the people are destroyed. And I don't mean to segue way off topic, but if you go as far back as the chattel slavery, that was the way to break the people, was to break them apart from one another. You have a family of Negroes. You take the father, you send him to a different plantation. Take the mother, send her to a different plantation. Take the child, you sell it off to a different plantation. You separate them completely. You break them, and you keep doing this. And there's more mechanisms to that. But I think they unleashed that entire idea with, I don't know. People say it's really only with third wave feminism. I think it started all the way back with first wave. And I think the best way we can see that it really wasn't for women, it was more so to destroy families, was the fact that Sojourner Truth wasn't even allowed to speak, or they didn't want her to speak about feminism, and about the idea of it and what was happening. I think it was a sole mechanism of white supremacy, if you want to call it that, to use the white female to infiltrate, the families of black people, in general, because we know who Planned Parenthood targets. We know what the Tuskegee experiments targeted. What they sought to unleash on the black community, etc. And that's a different topic. But yeah, I kind of rambled there. Sorry.
No. You mentioned the romanticism of Scarface, Goodfellas, The Godfather, and still to this day, I see many of those posters and replicas of those posters, not only in younger people, but older people. In your opinion, if this is your area or niche, I believe, where do you, or how do you explain that? Or is that something that can be explained? Is it a mindset? Is it something that gives off adrenaline? Because I'm not a male and I don't see those in any women's bedrooms or living rooms. Not to say that they're not, but I see them often in men, and it is not race specific.
Yeah, 100%. I can say I could tell you the equivalent to the female aspect of it, but we'll start with Scarface and Goodfellas for the males. For the men, the romantic part with it is always, and this boils down to our animalistic nature, our natural proclivity to status, wealth, productivity. Men always want to feel like they're producing, and that's in us innately. We want to feel like we are serving a productive purpose on this planet. So then when you grow up poor, and those movies typically target, like the people that typically tend to lean towards those movies as a positive tend to be from poor neighborhoods, lower class neighborhoods, because you see the money that was being earned. You see the big house that was had. You see, really you see the ability to have all of this, which will give you access to women. And at the end of the day, that's what every man wants. And to our detriment sometimes, because we are held accountable for, catcalling or whatever you want to call it. But it drives us. The idea of having women in abundance and having the ability to go out and choose women in abundance is what we chase. That's why men want the fancy car. They want the nice job. They want the big house. It's not for us. It's so that we can go out and get women. And those things are symbols of the ability to get women. And I'll explain it like this. When I was younger, Tupac Shakur did an interview on MTV with Tabitha Soren, I believe her name was, where he said something to the effect of, I went to a nightclub on a Friday, and this is the day before, I think he said, I Get Around dropped. There's something like one of his big hits dropped. He says like the day before. So I went to a club on Friday. I walked in, all these honeys around. He's like, man, I'm trying to holler at honeys left and right, but none of them giving me the time of day. No one's giving the play. And he's like, I don't know what it was. Like I'm too skinny, I'm ugly, I'm bald, whatever. He said, but then the next day I get around drop, and I go to that same club and those same girls are there. And then I see off in the corner, one girl point at me and stare at me. And she's saying something to the other girl. All of a sudden, all the girls flock to me. That is what every man wants to feel when he goes out and produces, when he goes out and creates himself. Because, and the same phenomenon doesn't really happen with women because of a system of evolutionary belief that I have, is that women are born with intrinsic value, meaning that you're born with value, with high value, which is your beauty and your purity. And for thousands of years, this has been shown in high kings and sheiks and czars and princes, etc., choosing and courting virgins, beautiful virgins. Virgins were held on the highest pedestals at one point in time. And I always tell women, if you want to be held on a pedestal, be as beautiful and be as pure as you can for as long as you can until the most high value man comes around. And you'll have your pick of the litter. But if you want to throw away your value, go out and be like a man. Sleep with everybody. Give your value away. Men, on the other hand, we're not born with value. Men are told from an early age, you got to go out into the world and create your value, son. You got to go out into the world and do something, make something of yourself. So women are born, men are made. So when a man goes out into the world, like Tupac did, and I can use a million other guys, but I'm just using a rudimentary idea that I had when I was a kid. Was what I got from what he said was, I went out into the world, and at one point in time, I was nobody to these women. I made something of myself, and then I was somebody. It's the exact opposite for women. You're automatically somebody to us. That's why we're always chasing. Like a woman could be a beautiful woman when she's a Starbucks barista, or she works the drive-thru at McDonald's, and she can get the most successful man. That phenomenon doesn't work in reverse for us. So we have to go out and make ourselves. So I think Scarface and Goodfellas, all like Henry and Goodfellas even says it at one point in time. He says, what does he say? All my life, I always wanted to be a gangster. And then he goes on to explaining why. He said because when he went into the club with there's another guy called Jimmy the Gent. When I went to the club with Jimmy gave the doorman $100, just for watching the door. He gave the bartender $100 just for keeping the ice cold. Having that much money and power and clout and people loving you and validating you is something men have to chase. Women are born with it. And if they keep their beauty and their purity, they have more and more value. Whereas I think, ladies out there who are staunch feminists, please take this as soundly as you can. Third wave feminism especially lied to you. It told you to spread your legs, sleep with whoever you want, do whatever you want, do whatever men do, and you can get away with it because we're exactly the same and we're not. Men do not judge a woman. Men do not value a woman in the same way that women value men. And that is basically why men still hold on to that. Grown men, I don't, of course, but grown men still hold on to the idea that Scarface was the hero. That the gangsters and Goodfellas were the guys, they were the alpha males. And in all honesty, they were criminals, but they were, they were. You don't have to be a criminal to be seen as an alpha. But they were the alphas. So that is why I believe the people from low neighborhoods especially hold on to that idea because they don't have it and they still want it and they believe that I can get it. See, and that's an inspiration to them. They're like, I can become like Scarface and have anything I want. Women, on the other hand, have recently actually started doing almost the same thing with people like Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, so many other people, Nicki Minaj. But women, unlike men, they don't. I don't know why this is, but they don't tend to do stuff like wear T-shirts with Cardi B on it or anything like that. They just do stuff like try to make themselves look more like that person. I think that's why Kim Kardashian blew up the way she did, was because what a lot of people don't realize is Kim Kardashian's father made her and that whole family, really. Robert Kardashian was the hotshot lawyer in Los Angeles that helped get OJ off of murder. And that's where Kim Kardashian came from. She actually worked for her father at some point in time and met a lot of celebrities through him. So like she would be nowhere without her father or Ray J. But because she looked a particular way and she was a woman who made it to the top being a slut, pretty much, women who were also doing those same things, like I've slept with a lot of dudes too, or like I've done this too, so like if she could do it, I can do it, are seeing these women, just like Scarface, just like the Goodfellas guys, all criminals, all doing really bad stuff to get to where they're at. Women are doing the same thing with Cardi B's, with, you know, the Kim Kardashians, with, you know, the Nicki Minaj's, where they're listening to the songs, they're watching their life stories and how they came up, and they're comparing it to their lives. They're like, oh man, I'm poor. I was poor at one time and I slept with a lot of people too. I was a stripper too. I was a thought too. I was a OnlyFans girl too. You know, like I have like, you know, three dozen, bodies under my notch count too. So they saw inspiration in that these women, these anomalies, still made it, even though, you know, they are not the desirable women. Like to the average man does not want a Cardi B or a Nicki Minaj. Like honestly, you ask them, do you want your wife, the woman you choose to marry or settle down and have children with and start a family with, do you want her to be a stripper who probably has a notch count that's in the double digits? And he's gonna tell you no. You know, he's gonna be like, no, I would prefer not. And even these celebrity women who are promoting this nonsense to women, because the majority of women aren't going to be Cardi B, aren't going to be Nicki Minaj, aren't going to be these women. They're just going to be society's throwaways. And they're going to be old and bitter once they realize, fuck, I should not have followed that nonsense. But you look at Cardi B, even Offset. Is it Offset? I think she's married to Offset, right? I don't know too much.
Yeah.
Okay, so even her husband, even Offset, you know, goes on Instagram videoing her cooking and cleaning and doing traditional natural women things, like taking care of her daughter and making sure her daughter doesn't listen to her music, because even Cardi B knows her music is trash and her music steers women in the wrong direction. And she's married. She has a nuclear family, but yet some of her songs are F a man, I don't need a man, etc. But yet she's still playing the natural traditional female role because she understands it from a nuclear perspective, that is what works. And I guarantee you, if she keeps doing that, her marriage will work. And Beyonce is one of the biggest ones, you know, and I don't want the Beehive coming after me, but Beyonce is one of the biggest hypocrites, man. Her entire career was built on, you don't need a man, you know, bills, etc. But then gets married, starts a nuclear family, and they're doing awesome, you know, and they probably won't divorce, even though they've been through so many fights, etc., that have been public. They probably still won't divorce, but she don't need a man. They don't need a man. That's what they're promoting to women, you know, in their songs. Yet they're living contradictory lifestyles. Sierra, etc. You can go down the list of, you know, celebrities that women idolize in the same way that men idolize Scarface and the mob.
So is it just the look that these people seek that give them this sense of empowerment? Is it the money that comes along with the look or perception of what is being exuded by these people? And I also saw one of your posts, which was actually very profound and poignant. You showed a picture of Sierra and she being in the nuclear family mode. And underneath, you also showed two pictures that were a bit provocative. Could you expound on that particular post? Because I had to double take. I'm like, were those photos taken while she was actually still married?
No, those are new photos.
I mean, were they all together?
Yeah, those are new photos.
Time frame wise.
Yeah, time frame wise, those photos are taken while she's married.
Wow.
So, and that's been kind of a running joke online about her husband. Is that, you know, and I don't get me wrong, I don't really get into alpha beta discussions because, you know, I think also I have a quote that I tell people, like, once you know what an alpha and a beta is, man, you should just leave it at that. Because the more you start discussing it and the more you start pumping your chest out, you know, telling people you're an alpha, the more beta you will. Because the market will validate whether or not you're an alpha. People around you will validate whether or not you're an alpha. The woman you're with will validate whether or not you're an alpha. If you're not a leader of your family, if you're not a leader of men, you're not an alpha. You know, if you don't at least lead your family, you know, or somebody, you're not an alpha. And men rarely validate whether or not they're an alpha, especially if they're single men out here saying that they're alphas. How can you validate that? You know, like, show me the women, you know, the dozens of women that you're betting, or show me the few women that you're betting that all know each other and they know that you're betting them. Show me your wife. Show me, you know, your kids that you raised properly and you follow. But Russell Wilson, right? That's his name. Russell Wilson,
Yes.
Sierra's husband, has kind of been the butt of jokes on YouTube. I haven't really spoken about it because I don't like to talk about people like that. It's just not what I do. If it ever came up, I would kind of talk about it in a way that would propose, you know, an alternative way I would approach it more than like what he's doing. But he's kind of been the butt of jokes where people call him beta for allowing his wife to embarrass him, because that's how I would view it, on Instagram, by showing off her body in provocative ways that other men can see. These are photos of, it's not just photos of her, you know, of her partially, you know, exposed, but it's in a way that suggests sexual, you know, connotation. You know, it's like this, like once you're married, there are things that become acceptable as a man. You know, if you're dating somebody, like if I was in his shoes and I'm dating Sierra, sure, you know, sure, we're just dating, you know, whatever, you know. But if you want me to take you seriously for marriage, you have to stop all that. And if you don't stop all that, we'll just continue dating, period. I don't care how much money you make off your Instagram. I make enough money as a football quarterback. Like, I don't care. But if you're gonna present because I put it like this: when Sierra does stuff like that, especially if the average, it's not even that it's Sierra, it's if the average woman were to do what Sierra is doing, it's advertisement for other men. Because that's all you're gonna get is men, thirsty men, come to your comment section, hitting the like button and DMing you, period. And that is what becomes the bigger problem, is that now it's worse than giving your phone number out. Things like this, like Instagram accounts, you know, with married women who are, you know, posting pictures of themselves half nude. It's worse than giving your phone number out to a guy. At least if you gave a guy your phone number while you were out, you can choose whether or not, you know, to accept him, to accept his text. He doesn't know where you're at. If he calls, you don't have to pick up. On Instagram, a guy knows everything he needs to know about you. He knows exactly how you look. He knows what your ass looks like. He knows what your half naked body looks like. He can DM you any time of the day or night. You can face chat with one another. It's just as good and better than getting a woman's phone number. So when a woman puts herself on Instagram half naked and she's married, all it does is embarrass her husband. For me, you know, like if I'm in that situation, I'm not marrying somebody like that unless they say, you know what, I'm gonna quit Instagram, or I'm gonna quit posting this type of stuff on Instagram, and I'm gonna make my Instagram private. Simple as that. She's a celebrity, sure. But she needs to also understand that as a celebrity, she has a greater responsibility with her influence than to be out here as a married woman showing girls that, hey, I'm married, but I also do this. You can too, which is unrealistic. No, you cannot. If you follow in the footsteps of Sierra, more than likely you're going to end up unhappy and unmarried. And like there are articles that, like, there's an article in my link tree. If you go to my link tree, on my Instagram, it's @Rainy_podcast. Go in the bio. There's a link tree with all the facts, data, and statistics that you need to back up the stuff that I talk about. There's an article that talks about what really makes women happy. And they've proven that it isn't your career or your college education. They're actually saying career women and college educated women who are unmarried by the age of 30 to 35 are the most unhappiest people on the planet Earth. Not just the United States, but the planet Earth. But what makes the happiest women are women who have a family, a husband and children, are reporting the highest levels of happiness. So at the end of the day, a husband and children are still what make a woman happy, because it validates to a woman her value. A woman can say, you know what, look, I'm valuable. I got married. A man chose me to marry, because a woman chooses whether or not a man gets access to sex. A man chooses whether or not a woman gets access to marriage. That's why a man proposes. If a man never proposes, you don't get married. And that's probably 99% of the time. Only about 1% of women, if you were to ask 1,000 women, would say, yeah, I proposed to my husband. 99% of them would say, hell no, you better get down on one knee. And Sierra is influencing children, especially young little girls, and it's sad, to do the wrong things. You're not going to get a man. You're not going to get marriage that way. The majority of men are gonna treat you like a thought. They're gonna treat you like, what you're showing them. You're easy. It's like Tupac said, I don't want it if it's that easy. And what he means by I don't want it doesn't mean I don't want to sleep with you. It's I don't want to marry you. Like, at the end of the day.
So are these statistics from alpha males or males in general? Are these statistics from alpha males or males in general?
I'm sorry, I'm getting an echo. Let me close this one. I'm sorry, can you repeat that question? I'm sorry, I was getting an echo.
Absolutely. I asked, are these statistics or are these mindsets from the actual alpha male or males in general in reference to or as it relates to choosing the woman? You just said, yeah, they'll sleep with you, but as the Beehive would say, you're not going to put a ring on it.
Yeah. I can't speculate whether or not the statistics were provided by an alpha male, but I can tell you that men who are particularly looked at by society as alpha males are proving these statistics. And I'll expound on that. So, women, when asked, so if you go on my link tree, and you go down, there's something called the female delusion calculator. It's basically a calculator that was put together by a federal census. I'll read it to you. Live search user surveys conducted by U.S. Census Bureau and NCHS. Basically, it's a federal census board that puts together the data and statistics taken from hundreds of thousands of women millions of women across the United States and men. And it takes all the data from their average earning, their average income, to their college education, height, body type, race, etc. Takes all that into account. And the alarming majority of women on dating apps, Tinder, even Instagram now is being considered the number one dating app. An alarming number of women on Tinder did the best study on this. An alarming number of women tend to want a man who makes $100,000 or more, is over 6 foot. Typically, I think the median was 6'1". Is athletic build, not overweight. I think women typically, except for black women, lean towards white males as the most popular. It's college educated, and what was the other one? Yeah, it was just it. Yeah, those are the three, or those are the four. An alarming number of women pick those markers for an exceptional partner when looking for a partner, and the shocking conclusion to that when you do the female delusion calculator is those markers are less than 1% of men. That means a lot of these women are their standards are delusional. They overrate themselves. They say, I'm worth this and I deserve this, but they don't realize how unrealistic that is. So they're not looking at any man who makes under $100,000. And even if you go as far down as $60,000, that only goes up into about the 10th percentile of men. So it's delusional. So these women want the highest earners in the United States. And these men who have went out into the world basically conquered it. They got educated, they started a business or got a really good career. They managed to keep up with their health. They look good. They were gifted great genetics. These men that they're looking for can have any woman they want based on those statistics. And a lot of these women that choose that way are showing you who the alphas are in society. Those are the alphas. Because as I said, society determines your value. You don't. Like, I don't determine my value. Society does. My wife did. The women that I dated did. The women that I vetted did. Society chose that. The guys that I hung around that admired me because I was able to choose who I wanted, because of what I went out and earned, determined my value. You can't call yourself an astronaut. You have to become one. And it's the same with value. People tend to think, well, I'm valuable. I hold myself in high value. Like, I think I'm really valuable. Well, you got to go out and prove it. Go out and get one of those, 1% men that you say you can have. And if you were to ask 1,000 women to do it, about only one or two of them could. It's as simple as that. And maybe less. If you were to ask 1 million women, probably only a few could actually get him to marry her. And that's who chooses who the alpha is. That's who chooses to validate those statistics. Are basically society. Women in general validate those statistics, and then the guys who went out and earned those things for themselves, determined it. If that answers your question, sorry.
Yes. So you had a quote that I told you that stuck out. Would you like to expound on that about the alpha male? And I just want you to go ahead about your quote because it really caught my eye, and I'll just begin with it where you mentioned about if you cannot tame. So I'll let you complete that and expound on that if you don't mind, because I think that is extremely important for the men that are listening now or who may catch the replay, and explain especially the end of your quote.
Absolutely. So I know exactly the quote you're talking about. Let me just go to it so I can read it verbatim. to you. So this quote I actually came up with after speaking to one of my customers. And she said something to me that just really really stood out. Let me see if I can find it. Where is it at? Sorry, bear with me. Yeah, here it is. It's the identify your triggers quote, if I'm correct. Yes?
Yes, absolutely.
That's the one? Okay. So yeah, I was actually speaking to a customer. Shout out to Misty in Los Angeles, Alhambra, actually, I think. Yeah, I was with a customer. We were installing a new system for her. And I was talking to her while I had some downtime, and she was asking me about my business and about, dealing with customers and this, that, and the third. I said, it's important to be patient with customers, especially in this business, because, a lot of what we do is very expensive, and they want to know that they're getting their money's worth. So a lot of times they expect you to be ripping them off, because a lot of these people, might have been ripped off before. So you have to also understand that, And she said, yeah. I think that's the hardest part of customer service, is not being triggered by, disgruntled or impatient customers that don't really understand what it takes to complete the job you're doing for them, the service you're completing for them. And as she was saying it, I was developing this quote, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of profound. Yeah, you're right. Because triggers is a big topic nowadays, right? Because people are triggered really easily nowadays by stuff. And immediately it hit me. I said, yeah, because if you can be the most calm and collected person throughout the day, and if you're triggered by something, it can ruin your entire day. So, are you in charge of your day, or are you in charge of your life, or are your triggers in charge of your life? And we both agreed, it's your triggers. So that in itself, is telling. And I come across on the internet, because the internet is undefeated, man. The internet will, especially comment sections, man, will kick your ass if you're not careful. That's why I tend not to get into the comment section a lot of times of a lot of these IGs and YouTubes. But there will be guys, and guys are the worst, man. I won't say that. Guys and gals, they get triggered pretty hard. But when guys get triggered, man, they tend to pump their chest out 2 words and try their best to make it seem like they're an alpha male. And if you have to keep telling yourself that, or if you have to keep telling a guy on the internet you're gonna kick his ass for something that he posted, you're not an alpha. You're not. You're a beta. Your triggers are the alpha. Because your triggers sound great. They sound awesome, but I guarantee you can't back none of that shit up. So your triggers are going to get you in trouble one day if you don't get them in check. You're going to sign a check your ass can't cash. And then you're going to realize,
Anthony, my apologies. Can you please slowly repeat that again? Because there are so many, and I am not going to name names. And that's with women too.
Yeah.
Well, this is my question. If you have to continue to say something over and over, or give yourself an accolade, is that because you're not an alpha, or
Yes.
you lack maybe insecurity, and you're covering that up by continuing to repeat, I'm that guy, or I'm that girl? So I'm going to get off real quick and let you answer that. I'm going to keep you in the hot seat.
Ooh, you keep giving the right answer. I know you're trying to differentiate between those 2 answers, but they're both the right answers.
Oh, all right.
You are not an alpha, and you definitely have insecurity that you're working through. If you have to keep telling yourself, because you're basically talking to yourself. You're just in an echo chamber when you're at that point. When you have to keep repeating to somebody that you like, I know this and I know how to do that. I got all these, these people. Like, if you have to keep saying that, it goes back to what I just said. You're not an alpha, because who's validating everything you're just saying? Can I go through your Instagram and see that it's validated by anything? I can't. A lot of times, these guys who be on Instagram trying to, shadow box with people, through comments. You go on their page, and they don't even have a photo of themselves. Like, they're hiding behind like an anime picture, or their photos are of like grass of a tree, like nothing, no accomplishments at all. Like their following is like freaking 6, and then they're following 8,000 people. Who's validating you? No one's validating you. You're not doing nothing. Especially if you're a man. It's sad if you're a man. You're not producing at all. And that goes back to that whole Columbine thing. It's like, those are the type of people who end up shooting up schools, because they have no drive to go out into the world and produce and validate the things that they keep telling themselves. All they do is repeat somebody else's talking echo chamber. Exactly. Repeat somebody else's talking point, and it's sad. You're just proving yourself a beta over and over and over again. To me, especially if you're in a conversation with me, typically it starts like this. I will engage in calm, collective discourse. Once I see, especially once you start name calling, is a sign of a beta. Threats are a sign of a beta, especially if it's online. What point do you, as an alpha, have to threaten somebody online? 0 point. You can just hit the delete button, hit the end button, freaking go to the next page, get rid of them, push them out of your life. That's what alphas do. Like, I'm not wasting any more time on you, so I'll start calm, collective discord with somebody. Once it gets off topic, or once it gets the name calling and threats, I just leave it alone. I'll leave it at that. And a lot of times I'll get in my DMs, I'll get notifications, and then I'll just block them, because this is a waste of time. Insecurity and beta male energy.
That's really interesting, because I'm not sure how familiar you are with YouTube, but that is happening and has happened quite a bit, where you have those that, as you just mentioned, and for safety reasons, many women are behind avatars, but then some will cam up. I will do avatars most of the time, but there are times I will. And when this podcast begins, and as I mentioned, I would like for you to be the first guest, if you have time for that, because I think this ties in to exactly what we are planning to do. But there are many men that you only see all of the time avatars. So again, what is, again, this is your opinion, your perspective, and you seem quite knowledgeable in this area, to what type of personality is that? You said that you do not believe that it's alpha. And again, to be fair, I understand a lot of people do characters or gimmicks, but again, from a male perspective, if that is all you see all of the time, hiding behind, as you said, an avatar, never showing the work or anything that resonates them as an individual, what would you say about that person and a mindset? Is it lack of maturity, insecurity, or a masquerade hiding their true selves? And I'll take your answer off the podium.
Okay. First, shout out to Carl Belton. That's correct. Yeah, a lot of YouTubers be out here, doing a whole lot of disrespecting name calling. It's just the nature of the internet, man. I think all of those things again are correct. Could be correct about an individual, based on a case by case basis. But for the most part, I do believe it is insecurity. I think for the most part it's insecurity. And I can if I can just get anecdotal. I don't like to get anecdotal too much. But I can put myself in a person like that shoes about 15 years ago. I'm 37 now. So about 15 years ago, I could put myself in a person like that shoes. 22-year-old me, my first marriage, I was married once upon a time. If you haven't been on the YouTube since the start of it, I was married, and I was a very non-productive husband. I was obsessed with becoming a musician, an artist. And I think a lot of males these days, especially males that come from lower income communities, poor communities, where you don't have access to a lot of, you don't have access to higher forms of learning. Your education system is really failing. You tend to look towards either sports to get you out of your condition, or you look towards the media. Like, it goes back to the whole romanticizing of particular culture. And I wanted to be a musician, particularly a rapper. I wanted to be a producer. So I had my own little studio equipment and everything. And I thought, that was my plan A. It should have been my plan like F, and then I should have, had career, education, etc. lined up first. But that was like my plan A. And in doing that, I learned a hard lesson that if you don't plan, if you fail to plan, you don't fail. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that's exactly what I did. I fell flat on my face and I became bitter. And I think a lot of these guys with these avatars are bitter because they didn't become what they wanted to be in life, possibly because they didn't know how to get there. And that's all an education thing. That's all being led the right direction by a stable father or a stable household. And I think a lot of these guys are bitter, and gals, but I think a lot of these guys are bitter because they didn't become what they wanted to be in life, or they haven't gotten there yet, or they don't know how to get there, or they see, guys like me, or guys like the guys in the chat, or guys like, who's the big guy now? Andrew Tate being canceled. They see guys like that who have everything they could ever want, and imagine, and the things that they wanted and were planning for themselves to have, but they don't have, and they get mad and they blame the world's fault. And that's it. Exactly. If you have an education, if you have training, if you've been trained in a trade, like I chose after college to go into a trade that I had followed for some time and realized was very lucrative and was climbing on the bell curve. I chose to get an HVACR education and start my own business after a few years learning the trade. And now, I'm en route in probably just a few years to become a multimillionaire. And I'm making steps to do that because I was educated that way. Because I realized that blaming society is not going to get you anywhere, especially as a man. There's something that a guy named Richard Cooper says in his book, The Unplugged Alpha. If anybody out there has read it, man, it's like Rollo Tomasi's The Rational Male series and condensed into one book. He says in this book, women don't care about your failures. They wait at the finish line and fuck the winners. And that is pretty much what society does to men, to encourage them to make something of themselves women do not reward failures. Like, they do not reward losers. And so when these losers realize that, they become bitter and they start blaming it on the women. They start blaming it on the men who went out and won. And then they get online and then they take out their energy on them. It's at the end of the day, it's their fault if they're adults and they're still losing. Maybe if they were children and they're losing as children, or they have a loser's mindset as a child, you can blame it on their parents. But once you become an adult, it's your responsibility to start winning and to start learning how to win. If you can't do that, then find somebody who's winning and try and copy their strategy. If you can't do that, then I don't know what to tell you.
And something very important, you mentioned trade. Can you expound, in your opinion, the importance of trade with or without college?
Oh, absolutely. Please. Are you ready for me to speak? I'm sorry. Was that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Oh my God. Trades are the single most important education for everyone. Especially those of us, in the Black community, in the Latin community. Really the Black community, man. I was really shocked when I got into HVAC how very little Black people, males in general, are in this industry, and it's bad. That's really bad for our community because it's such an important industry, and it's emerging, it's growing. It's not really emerging, but it's growing in leaps and bounds, and it's always necessary. It's always going to remain a necessity, and you don't have to go to college to get an education. You can take an online course. I don't recommend online courses, but if you don't have any trade schools around, you can take an online course. Just really, really read and get out into the field and try to do some of this stuff before you call yourself an HVAC professional. But you can go to your local community college. You don't have to get a 2 to 4 year degree. You can get it in 6 months. You can get a trade diploma and get into the field. Get your NATE certificate. Get your EPA Universal certificate, and get into the field. You will get hired. You will get hired on. I got hired on when I first got into HVAC, starting at $37 an hour. I'm making $48 now. So in this field, and that's just working for a company. That doesn't include side work. Like side work, you always gonna get. Like you're gonna get so much side work. It's gonna overwhelm you. You won't have time to spend with your family. You're gonna have to be turning work away, and that's the best problem to have as a business. But HVACR, Black males, get into the field. They need you. And then also that is like quotas need you, because these places need to hire Black folks, period. Electricians, plumbers, roofers, carpenters. Like these trades are what are required to build a community. Like I guarantee you, if you were to go back to Tulsa, Oklahoma during the era of Black Wall Street, the people who built that community were tradesmen. Like they were all tradesmen. And then the people who cultivated the growth of that community were university and college educated. Because that's what university and college does. It cultivates the community. It grows the community. But the foundation of the community is built on the trades. So we need more Black males, especially in trade. Females in particular trades like registered nursing, so many different trades. We need more women in HVAC as well, doing the clerical work, because women are really good with customer service. Especially what I found in HVAC with my company is women are good with negotiating with customers. They're really good at talking, because women are people persons. Like women love people, men love things. That's why we dabble with our hands. We like to work on things and build and go out and work on air conditioning. Women love to talk. That's why they, it's always considered gossip, when women get together and talk, but they love to talk and you're really good at it. And they're really good at negotiating. Their skills of negotiating and getting money out of people are awesome. So I think, especially women, man, look into getting the HVAC dispatching, getting to HVAC marketing and sales. Like, they pay really high. Like, our marketing and sales, they probably make over $100K a year. And you don't have to be college or university educated. You just have to know a little bit about the field and have some sort of customer service background.
So let me ask you this. What do you think about STEM?
STEM. Yes, STEM. STEM is that fringe. So I originally...
And let me introduce you really quickly. If you see this gentleman in the chat, Carcino for Life, you see him?
Yeah, I see him. What's up, Carcino?
Yes. He knows a lot about STEM. His cousin is really deeply involved with that. So I will take your answer and I'll mute my mic so you can go on with STEM.
Okay. What do you want to know about STEM? Or do you just want my general opinion about it?
Yes, as far as it relates to our community and the importance of that in our children and young adults.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. STEM is what allowed, I'm going to say this as kindly as I can say. STEM is what allowed the demographic of people who lead the race now, financially, economically, privilege-wise, is what has allowed them to lap us several times over. And mostly because we were kept out of those areas of education for so long that they were allowed to cultivate that wealth of knowledge. STEM, so my original major was architectural drafting design when I first went to college. And then I dropped out, came back, did nursing, dropped out, came back, did solar, got a associate's degree in solar. Then I bridged over to UCLA and was trying to get a degree in engineering, and I failed miserably at that because I'm terrible with math. It's a lot of math. So shout out to Carcino, his family, for whatever they're doing in STEM, because STEM involves a lot of mathematics, and you got to be good with it. You got to be a maverick. But it's super important for the Black community. It is super important to get into those fields and to dominate. To don't just get into those fields, get an education, and then go get a job. Get into those fields, dominate those fields. And here's what I always tell anybody: don't get an education and then go wherever it's easy to succeed at. Go where it's hard to succeed at. Go where there's no one who looks like you, who was at the top of their class in university and who's dominating at whatever company they work for. You go there and you dominate them. You go there and you prove that the community you come from is just as good, because we're not proving anything going to these easy jobs to work at, these easy companies to work for. Go there, dominate there, and then start your own company. But also in STEM, there's, engineering, mathematics, robotics. There's these places where you can invent, you can become a creator and not just a curator. And once you get into STEM and become a creator, you now have the power to basically become, how can I say this? You become a G, you become a god in all aspects, of this one particular area that you're good in. And we need more of those, because our history is rich with those. If you want to go all the way back to Imhotep, in Egypt, and this is on an entirely different thing. Egypt, like, is black history, period. And you go back to Imhotep and the architect and engineer who engineered the pyramids, and that man was in STEM before STEM existed. So it's in our history. If you go back to Timbuktu, we created the first universities that taught STEM. You know, it's in our history. So we need it more. The overlords who have sought to destroy this community knew where to aim, and the place they aimed at was taking away any of our history from us and what we were once great at, and telling us that our history started as slavery. This is all you're good at. You were good at being slaves, and now you're free. You know, so we need to get back to the roots, and the roots, you know, like, honestly, we're STEM. You know, STEM, creating. We were creators, cultivators, and we taught the world. So we need to get back to that. You still there? Oh, we lose the signal? I like this. I like this. This SWV loop that you got in the background. Shout out to SWV. Shout out to Doe Eyes for keeping me entertained with that as well. Did I lose you? Oh, somebody in the chat.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
No worries. Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Okay, I have a message here. Give me one quick second.
It might be mine. I just threw something in the chat.
Okay, no problem. But yes, Carcino for Life has been a stickler with that, and his cousin actually is involved with Saginaw STEM.
Oh, okay.
Saginaw.
I've never heard of that.
Absolutely. So again, shout out to Carcino.
Shout out to his cousin too.
Actually, excellent. So again, you said don't stay in where you were, but go to, someone higher, or a place that's higher where you can basically elevate yourself.
100%. 100%, man. I think what we fail to do in our community is and it could be partially our failure and partially the mechanisms that have been used against us, but like I'm 100% on board with taking accountability for where we've misstepped and not speculating, and where we have to hold ourselves accountable is not using the Chinese model of success, the Asian model of success in this country. Asians came here, and like 100% Asians did not suffer the atrocities that our ancestors suffered. They didn't. Like, their level of suffering is not on ours. So, and they also weren't targeted the same way we were. So I'm not going to compare that. But Asians came here and they figured out the recipe. They figured out the mode. The mode was to come here, see what white folks were doing, and do it better than them. And then you can see that now with the earning potential that Asians have in this country. I think it's especially Chinese no, especially Japanese and Koreans are the highest earners per capita in households in the United States. I think they earn $1 more on average than white people. And it's because when Asians come here, parents stress to them, STEM, get into STEM fields. And they also stress to them, when you get into STEM fields, go to work for these really, really white corporations and go there and dominate. And if you go to any of these places, Facebook, Google, Apple, any of these places in Silicon Valley, and you go inside and you walk around the engineer floor, it's Asian people. Even in LA where I work here, I do HVAC at this place out here called, what's it called? Sorry, it'll come to me. There's a place where they do robotics for movies out here. And if you go into their engineering section, it's all Asian people. It's almost all Asian people. I think there's one dude, but the head of the robotics department is Asian. And you can tell that area, those dudes make good money because they're the meat of that place. And we don't do that. We tend not to do that when we get into STEM. Like when we get into STEM, we go, a lot of times, and statistics can also back this. I don't have the statistics to back this, but I have read them. A lot of times when African Americans, mostly African American men, although African American women dominate college campuses, mostly African American men get into the STEM fields. When we graduate, or when we graduate, we tend to go to primarily, we tend to go to the professions or the corporations that are recommended to us by HBCUs, etc., because it's easier, because we know we'll get a foot in the door. A lot of times as well, when we tend to go to more prestigious Ivy League colleges, it's based on a status quo and not the quality of our education, not the quality of our earned potential to go there. And instead of asking to be put there because I am who I am, ask to be put there because of what I've earned, and then go there and dominate. And that's what I'm saying is, like, go to places like when I chose my career profession, I went and it's not really by choice as much as it is by necessity, because there's not a whole lot of Black-owned HVAC companies. But I chose to work in really, really white areas where I knew, like, the majority of these people are going to be white folks because they pay these guys a lot of money. So even though I'm a Black dude coming in there, they can't just discriminate on me and pay me less because you're paying all these white dudes this to start. You got to pay me too because I have the same education and I know just as much. But then I go in there and I dominate them and I prove myself, because as a Black man, especially if you're working around white people, you got to do 2 times what they do. You got to be double what they do. And if you fuck up, you're going to be doubly, like, punished for it. So that's what I did with myself. And I think that's what we have to do more of. We got to go to these places, dominate there, and then create our own and start creating our own corporations as well. Start from the ground up. And I think the 90s, that's why I'm so glad I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, because I was able to see that in motion, whereas it's kind of been dissolved nowadays. In the 90s, you had a lot of Black-owned corporations. Like you had Quincy Jones out here owning corporations. You had Russell Simmons. You had what's my man that did The Wiz and Motown. Barry Gordy. Barry Gordy was out here owning
Barry Gordy Jr. Yes.
Barry Gordy Jr. out here running media companies that were rivaling and like eiffling over major corporation companies like Sony and Paramount. Like his movies were doing good numbers. You had Keenen Ivory Wayans that was literally about to put Saturday Night Live out of business because In Living Color was doing so good on television. You had so many companies. You had, what's my man who made the Super Soaker, the engineer that made the Super Soaker, billionaire. Like, you had these guys creating their own avenues because probably they went and worked at these really, really white places and dominate and learn how these white folks maneuver in white society. And that's what Asians did. And we didn't copy that mold with them. Like, Asians went and learned how to maneuver in white society and did it better than them. And then, but when we were doing it was the 80s and 90s. And you can see it. If you go back and look at the program, you look at In Living Color, we learned how to do sketch comedy. We did it better than them. You look at sitcoms, Family Matters, freaking In Living Color, Living Single, Martin. These wholesome television shows with a black man as the husband and a black woman as the wife, not a black man as the husband and a white woman, no, not a black man, a white guy and a black mom. No, it was a nuclear black family, and they were doing well. And what they would do, if you watch Martin, was they would make fun of the black stereotypes that were used against us back in the blaxploitation era. They would make fun of those stereotypes and let the people watching it know, this ain't us. This ain't us. We make fun of this because this ain't us. But nowadays, those stereotypes are upheld as who we are. You know, so it's, you know, it's imperative. Like, it's incumbent upon us to really impress upon this generation coming up in STEM. You know, go out, dominate. Go out and compete hard. Don't settle for the easy job. Go out and find the hard job and make it easy. And then go find the next hardest job. The next hardest job after you've made the hard job easy is to go start your own. And then grow it. And learn how to maneuver in white society and then do it better than them. And then create another Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's what we did with Black Wall Street. We made Wall Street better than Wall Street.
So basically, raise your own, set and raise your own bar.
Facts. 100%.
Absolutely. Okay, that is a wealth of information. And if you have time, would you like to introduce people to the red pill and blue pill?
Yeah.
For those that do not know anything about that. And I'm still learning.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the red pill and blue pill is actually a pretty easy concept. Anybody who has seen the Matrix franchise film, the Matrix movies, from Matrix all the way to the newest one, I think it's like 4 movies, knows that there's a scene where a guy named Morpheus, played by Lawrence Fishburne, great black actor, presents 2 pills to the protagonist of the movie, Neo, played by Keanu Reeves. He presents 2 pills to him, a red pill and a blue pill. And he tells him, you take the blue pill and you'll stay asleep and you'll live in comfort. You'll stay in the Matrix. You'll be blind to all the falsities of the Matrix, to all the lies, and you'll live comfortably in your life, you know, as Neo. Or you can take the red pill and you'll wake up to all the lies and you'll be told the truth, and you'll realize how many lies have been told to you to keep you asleep inside of the Matrix and to keep you following the overlords and the status quo rather than becoming independent of the Matrix. And so the blue pill is symbolic of staying asleep, and the red pill is symbolic of waking up to the lies and becoming independent, and becoming the master of your universe. The blue pill is staying asleep and being dependent on the system to control you, to run your life. And for women, how I can explain this to you best is the blue pill is feminism. Especially for black women, because feminism has not done a single thing to benefit and move forward the production of black women. It has not. The blue pill is feminism. Feminism has kept you asleep, dependent on the government as your husband to basically take care of you with social welfare systems and mechanisms to put you through college for free, even though when you make college free, the quality of education goes down. So they're assuring that you come out of college with a liberal arts education and brainwashed. It's keeping you asleep. The red pill for women is waking up and realizing that that was all a lie. To keep you asleep, to get you to pay taxes, because that's all feminism was implemented for, was to get women out of the home, away from their husband and children, stop being a natural woman and come out, get a job and pay taxes, because the overlords wanted more money from people, and they saw that there's a whole demographic of people, it's just as much as men, that we can put to work and we can steal money from. And so they implanted women in there, all white women, to create a problem that didn't exist, because the majority of women, when feminism started, did not want feminism. The majority of women today still do not want feminism, but it is the hard majority of the narrative being pushed. There's billions of dollars going to feminism. Right here in Los Angeles, they have a feminist organization. It's a big building. Like, and the real estate out here is crazy. So the building in Hollywood probably cost them, it's actually in Beverly Hills, probably cost them multi-million dollars. It's a narrative that will keep you asleep, will keep you paying taxes, will keep you hating your family, will keep you hating your man, will keep you wanting to do what men do, will keep you not wanting to do what women naturally do best and men suck at, will literally make you hate kids, will make you hate kids to the point where you the womb and you believe it's not murder, will do all kinds of things that are vital to your existence as a woman on this planet and devalue you. The red pill will wake you up and show you where your value lies, and will truly make you a woman that is valuable, that every man, especially men who are awake, will pine after and who will want to marry. And that's the red pill and blue pill in a nutshell.
So can a woman that has been programmed to believe or in the trance of the blue pill, is that something that they can transition out of, or are they conditioned and have been so used to being, as you said, taken care of by the government, or the government, if you will, can be likened as their husband? Can they get out of that mindset, or are some so enamored and programmed that that's all they see, that's all they know, and they do not want to leave out of that comfort zone due to fear?
I will honestly answer this from what I know about women. Women better than men seek comfort. That's why men more often put themselves in harder jobs that they risk their lives in every day. And women tend to lean away from those jobs. They don't tend to want those jobs at all. Even the women who are feminists who want to be paid more, they still only want the corporate jobs. They don't want the jobs that pay really well, that are in dangerous fields, like linemen, construction, guys building skyscrapers, pipeline engineers. They seek comfort more than men do, which is what I believe is natural. It comes natural for them because men provide that comfort, have provided that comfort, like I said, for 1.7 million years. Men have provided that comfort to women. And so it's natural for them to do that, and they should be doing that. But I think the older a woman gets, the less impressionable she is. The more she's depended on the government to provide for her, or to give her her rights, or to give her child support, or to give her alimony, or to have her back in court, and to protect her from the man. I think the older she gets, the more she gets used to that, the harder it is to change her mind about it. Especially if she's benefited so much that if she was to wake up, she would lose a lot of those benefits. And if you watch the movie The Matrix, that the red and blue pill concept is based on, in the movie there's a character, his name is Cypher, white guy, his name's Cypher. In the movie, Cypher betrays Neo, and he betrays Zion, the people who are awake that have been red pilled. Cypher himself has been red pilled, but Cypher wants to go back to the Matrix. He wants to be blue pilled again. And he expresses regret for having taken the red pill. And there are a lot of these people out there. You got to watch for them. A lot of them are incels. A lot of them are MGTOW guys. Cypher says there's a scene where he's eating dinner with one of the agents of the Matrix. And I often call, people who come to shout you down and throw insults at you agents. He's eating dinner with one of the agents of the Matrix that are trying to kill Neo. They're trying to go after the people in Zion. And he's eating dinner with him, and the agent offers him a proposal, proposes something to him that will get him back into the Matrix and blue pilled again. But it's not possible, actually. And because once you've gone down that rabbit hole, you can't unsee or unlearn what you've learned. And a lot of people who have been woken up, they want to do that because it's too much for them to bear. It's too hard. So this guy eating steak. And in the Matrix, outside of the Matrix, you don't have steak. They don't have steak. They have this really nasty sludge, this nasty food that they eat to keep them, alive and well. Because the earth is outside of the Matrix is so desolate. There's really no resources, so they have to eat this this really nasty sludge. So he's eating a steak in the Matrix, and he says, "Man," he's like, "I would give anything, to not take that blue pill." He's like, because even though, I was awake in the Matrix, I sure do miss the taste of steak. So for the taste of steak, he was willing to betray Neo, and that's what I weigh to women who have depended on the Matrix or the government or, Big Daddy, Big Brother for support, is they don't want to give up that steak. That steak's too juicy. They don't want to go down the rabbit hole and have to be eating sludge. And what I tell people a lot is that sludge is equivalent to the truth tasting nasty. The truth tastes so nasty, man. I've seen truths that are like undoubted truth. There's no doubt. The facts weigh up. The facts, the pseudo facts that I've been given and been fed my entire life don't weigh up, but the facts weigh up against what is the narrative is as the truth, and it tastes nasty. I've had truths that have made me shed tears. Like, man, there millions of people died over that, and it's a lie. So the truth tastes nasty, and some people want to stay eating that juicy steak. They don't want to eat the truth. They want to eat the nasty, ugly. They want to eat the tasty lie. They want to eat the sensational lie. They don't want to eat the ugly truth. And sadly, there are a lot of women out there that are so comfortable being told that you don't have to change. You're good just the way you are. You're never wrong, and I think sitcoms and movies, all of that echo that. Like, a lot of women live in an echo chamber, like where it's always, girl, you do what you gotta do. Girl, you ain't wrong, he wrong. And it's always women are right, men are wrong. Happy wife, happy life. Like, it's always the woman is the prize. The man's not the prize. Even though the man brings back everything. History proves it. The man brings back everything. You can say, like, well, women haven't been allowed to, but even left to their own devices and being allowed to do things, women still don't produce. They still don't create. Women are the number one consumer of goods. Men are the number one creator of goods. Men are also the number one taxpayer, even though women consume more. So that means we're still producing more than women, regardless of all the rights they've been given. In fact, more rights than men have even nowadays. they're still the number one consumer, and we're still the number one producer. So it's a telltale sign that women, when left, with the government, what they choose, and 76% divorce rate, I think, proves that women would prefer, I prefer to go it alone. I prefer to just leave my husband. It is what it is. Women are incentivized to stay in the matrix. They're incentivized to divorce their husbands. They're incentivized to destroy their family. Like with tax breaks, with alimony, with child support, with the default mechanism of courts giving women the custody of the children, men having to fight for it, etc. I think it's harder. The earlier you catch a woman, you catch her between the ages of 18 and 23-ish, is more impressionable. You can leave a lot more lasting impression on her if you catch her at the right time. But the older she gets, I think the more turned away she is. It's harder, especially if she's lived under that government umbrella. If she hasn't really lived under that government umbrella or depended on the government, I think you can probably convince her pretty well with a good argument.
So to those women in their 40s, 50s, sadly 60s, that remain married to the government, what do you say about that? Because in reality, and I'm from the DC area, that's very prevalent here.
Yeah. What do I say to them?
I mean, is it a cycle that will continue within that family generation, or can it be broken? Or again, people speak about generational curses and systemic issues and cycles. And as I've said, I've seen and know of women in their 40s, 50s, and some 60s that still are married to the government.
Yeah, same. Same. I do as well. I think at that age, it's, like the saying goes, for lack of a better phrase, you can't teach old dogs and tricks. There are exceptions. There are people who really genuinely do want to learn something new and really do keep their mind open even later in life. But for the most part, people at that age, it's hard to convince. It's hard to convince them of something that's contrary to what they believe and what they've invested so much of their lifetime in. But I think what it's going to take, here's what I'll say. What it is going to take to convince that demographic of people that they have been reliant and dependent on the enemy to bring them happiness, or to bring them comfort instead of relying on their community where they should have been relying. What it will take to convince them is for the dollar to keep inflating. Right now, the inflation rate is peaking. And a crazy phenomenon that happens with inflation is government benefits will go up, but the cost of everything does. So your money that you're getting from the government is worth less and less. So while everyone else, like business owners, guys like myself, we can demand more money from the companies we work for, or raise the prices on our services to our clients, people who are dependent on the government for their support and their dollars cannot do the same, and the government will not shift in that. It will not say, well, the dollar is going up, so you might as well raise your monthly income. They're not going to do that. They're going to keep their income the same, as well as retirees. These people suffer the hardest when it comes to inflation, which is why I'm so against the dollar inflating. I'm so against this government giving out free shit and free money. I think those people, once it gets to a point where they can no longer afford anything, will be more open to it. They'll be more open to listen to somebody tell them, hey, you are depending on the wrong person for help. You are depending on the slave master to keep you on the plantation when I'm trying to show you how to get the fuck off of it. You know, so it's like there's a quote that I grew up hearing a lot that Harriet Tubman said when she was helping free her fellow enslaved Africans from the enslavement that they were in. She would often run across enslaved Africans who were scared to leave the plantation to the point where they would become a nuisance to her mission. And she would pull out the pistol on them and tell you, look, I got a bullet for you. She said, I got 6 bullets and your name is on one of them if you don't shut up, because you about to risk all of us losing our freedom behind you being scared. And then there's the quote, you know, like, I could have freed more people if only they knew they were slaves. You know, so it's the same thing with these people. You could actually help more of them if only they knew that what they were doing was to their detriment, to the detriment of their community. But yeah, it's gonna take. I think it's gonna take the inflation to keep climbing, and for their government benefits to be worth less and less. And they're gonna be, you know, pulling up to freaking the grocery store and only be able to afford a loaf of bread, you know, and maybe, you know, a half a pound of hamburger meat. And that's what they got to live off of for a month, you know. So I think that everybody's all going to have to face the reality at one point in time. What does the Bible say? The truth will come to the light. Those of us who are out here spreading the truth are spreading the good news, and eventually everyone's going to have to listen to the good news. And right now I think people are being censored and canceled because a lot of people have a big platform and they're telling people, and it's too early for the overlord to allow that information out, but eventually they're going to have no choice.
And that's exactly what the new podcast and the debut again is this Wednesday, and it's called Seeds of Life. And the co-host is Iceberg Thoughts, and it's basically about, well, the bottom line is self-preservation. He's into gardening, teaching you how to grow your own foods now, because winter is right around the corner. We don't know, as you mentioned, what lies ahead as far as the economy. We still have elections going on. There are a lot of things that are still brewing. I think we both kind of met in a live yesterday, and there's this movie, that trailer that I saw, My Son Hunter. I am super excited about seeing that. I think that's going to open up a lot of people's lives. But again, we're going to talk about planting seeds, preparedness. I believe that a lot of us, and again, this is collectively, it's not gender nor race specific, but I believe that many of us don't even have emergency preparedness kits in either our homes and or vehicles. So those are things that we're going to be speaking about to not only uplift and edify, but to empower people to get them prepared now, to make plans now. So when I saw you, I'm like, wait a minute, this ties in to exactly the direction we would like to go with this podcast. So that's why I extended that invite if you would like to be the first guest after the debut, because you've actually dropped super gems tonight. So I can just imagine with weeks coming how that's going to be.
I definitely appreciate that. I appreciate you letting me on your platform. I'm just a conduit. That's all I am. That's all I ever want to be. I don't want to get too high up, because like you tend to lose some of that you tend to lose some of that authenticity. When you get too many people, telling you, how much you've done for them. After a while, I think people tend to get numb to that, right? I'm just a conduit. I'm here to give the knowledge that I've been collecting, and I continue to collect it, and I collect it so that I can give it to the community. And if they take it and run with it, hopefully they can do the same thing I do. Collect it, spread the word. Collect it, spread the word. What you just said about preparedness, I stress that all the time to my family. Like we have go bags, self-defense mechanisms, non-lethal, lethal, seeds collecting, cultivating, just outdoorsman skills. These are all things that we need to have. We absolutely need to have, because if like television programming hasn't taught you already that if the world ends tomorrow, you are going, like, lawlessness is gonna expand, and the necessity for basic things like water and food are going to be the whole precedent. They're going to be the most important thing that anybody, the most valuable thing that anybody can have. So those people who know how to create food, find water, hunt food, cultivate it, animal husbandry, builders, etc. These are going to be the people, the alpha on the block. Especially if they also know self-defense skills and how to defend people. So we need to be out there doing that, training that, making it repetition, putting it in our school curriculum as well. So I 100% invite that topic. And yeah, if you would like to have me back on your platform, I'm more than happy to come back.
Sure. So last question, you mentioned self-defense. Is that something that you teach, or you just believe that it is something important that we all need to have, especially in these days and times?
No, I don't teach it per se. I could teach it. I'm versed enough in it that I could teach it. I'm a brown Prajeet in Muay Thai, blue belt in Jiu-Jitsu, but Jiu-Jitsu to me isn't a necessary martial art. It's good to have to massage your mind and to expand your mind as far as like thinking steps ahead. It does do that, but in real life combat, it will fail. Jiu-Jitsu will absolutely fail. So I don't really encourage people to practice Jiu-Jitsu, because even if you take a guy down and you know how to choke him out, if you're in close quarters with somebody with a knife, he can stab you to death. So you want to keep him at length. Then you want to use, for the most part, if you have a gun or a non-lethal projectile firing weapon, fire that first, or pull it on him first as a deterrent before fighting. If it gets to the point where it's hand-to-hand combat, keep him as far away from you as you can. In doing that, you need to learn kickboxing. Muay Thai is absolutely exceptional martial art to neutralize attackers. I've been in quite a few fights in my life. It wasn't really until after I started training Muay Thai that I really realized I knew how to fight, because your legs are longer than anybody's arms. And for the most part, people want to punch you, and the majority of people, I'd say about 98% of people, don't even know how to throw a punch. So when they square off with you to punch you, you can be assured they're not going to know how to punch you. So the best thing you can do is kick their legs out from under them, keep them at bay, keep them as far as you can. If you so happen to get to the ground, like, I would teach people like Krav Maga, lethal forms of martial arts or lethal forms of combat, where if somebody grabs you, let's say they grab you and they want to wrestle you, they want to slam you, you bite them. You bite them in a particular artery, bite them somewhere where it's going to kill them if they don't let you go, or you grab a handful of testicles. There are particular things you can do to somebody when you're in close quarters that will absolutely make them let go of you. And that's the last resort. You don't want to ever be close to somebody. So yeah, I can definitely teach. I've definitely practiced for a long time. I still practice the gym I attend. I warm up on a heavy bag, and I spar, every now and again just to keep my skills sharp, but I stay fit. I keep my tools sharpened, and my head's always on a swivel, especially with my family. I think any man, especially, should have practiced a lethal martial art. If not a lethal martial art, at least practice kickboxing and get really good at it. Because as a leader of your house, you should be able to defend your family and always keep your head on a swivel, because you never know when things happen.
So for all alpha males, should they have all of this type of training to protect their homes? And should they want or require that everyone in the household, including the little ones, also be trained? And how young should this begin?
Yes and yes. Yes, I think any man who believes he's an alpha male anyway has to, at some point, have something that will back that up. And nothing backs up you being an alpha more than you being able to kick almost every person. Nothing screams that more than that. If you're the guy, like if you're Mike Tyson in the 80s, and you step into a room of 50 men, 50 women, everyone looks, all of the guys say, holy shit, that's Mike Tyson. All of the women say, holy shit, that's Mike Tyson. All of the people in the room know you can kick every guy in that room's ass. You have literally just become the alpha in the room. Without saying a word, you're validated by the people in that room. So it is incumbent upon men, dude, practice a martial art. Practice kickboxing, because boxing's good, but you have to be close enough to hit somebody. And I've seen guys that really know how to throw hands get their ass kicked by somebody that knows how to throw kicks, or also knows how to wrestle really well. And just get their ass kicked. Because once a boxer gets taken down, it's hard. Like, you can't punch your way up. Like, it's hard to punch up. So, like, a guy who has very little boxing will take you down and just beat the shit out of you once you're on the ground. And exactly, there's nothing you can lose in not training yourself how to be a lethal weapon with your hands. Like, you should be a lethal weapon. If you don't have a gun in the house, you don't have a knife in the house, at least you have yourself in the house. That's just for a man who wants to at least feel like he's an alpha. All right, something has to validate that in your feelings. Like, you know how to fight? All right, that's gonna give you at least, twice as much confidence as you had before you knew how to fight. And I know that personally. Like, before I really knew how to fight, I always had the talent to fight. Like, I always had good rhythm, and I always moved good. But once I learned how to throw hands, once I learned the techniques, once I learned the skills, the combinations, I was more confident with it. I knew that, if I have to get down with somebody in the street, I'm gonna handle myself really well. And then there's the mentality as well. You have to you can't just learn how to fight and not have the mentality that you always have to be ready. I'm not saying go look for fights, but always be ready. Always be ready and be disciplined. And always understand that not every confrontation, like most confrontations, in fact, don't have to end in a fight. Like, you can talk your way out of it. Like, look, man, we don't want to do that. There's no need for that. And that's what a true alpha male does in general to begin with. It's like, if you can diffuse the situation, you just proved yourself an alpha as well, because you were in control of the entire situation the entire time. But yes, your family should also be trained as well. Your family should also be trained as well. They should be trained in hand-to-hand combat. They should be trained in in weapons as well, and they should be trained at an early age. And I think the earlier the children are, you should put more emphasis on respecting weapons, respecting the craft of the martial art that you're practicing, and respecting the people that are around you. Because if you don't respect the people that are around you, then you're going to think you can just bully people because you've learned these things. You have to understand we're learning these things hoping that we never have to use these things on people ever. We're learning these things to protect people from people who don't have the discipline. But we don't want to become those people who don't have the discipline and self-control. We want to always remain in control. Because if you are now out of control, you're triggered and out of control, you're a beta. Period. Like, you're not in an alpha frame. You're in a beta frame. So you want to always be in control.
And that's the quote, the second one I wanted you to expound on, because there's so many people that get upset or triggered. And I want you to, like I said, when I saw that, and it applies to women, but I want to know as far as the quote unquote alpha male, because you hear that tossed around and thrown around like you see men on the football field, but I don't think many people really quite understand that. If you are easily triggered, if you have to continue to go backwards and forth, and as I said before, and I'll just use this euphemism, if you have to keep bigging yourself up, and I want people to be clear, and again, this is your perspective, and everybody has their opinion, is that a beta, a man that is insecure, or maybe not quite fully matured yet, or that is completely not a characteristic of an alpha male, as the traits that we've seen on charts and statistics may show?
Ooh, yeah, that's rough. It could be both, or it could be one or the other. I'll give you a scenario. You use the example of football players on football fields. So NFL players, for the most part, have proven themselves to be out. They have went through, some of them, elementary, middle school, high school, college football, and they're the best of the best. Now their paycheck, the women who pine over them, the team owners who select them in the draft, all of these things shout alpha male. That's why when an NFL player, shows up at a nightclub and buys a section, all the girls want to be in that section. They know who he is. He's shown that he's an alpha male. He has alpha male value, at least. Like, these women value him like that of an alpha male. Now, mentality-wise, he might not exactly function in a social setting as an alpha male all the time, because I think men who are given that level of fame, money, and attention that early in life have to develop through the pitfalls and failures. And if they never have pitfalls and failures, they don't mature. They don't mature into their prime alpha self like they would if they had done the opposite. And I think an example of that would be like Ray Lewis back in the day. He had to go through it. He had to go through the ringer and court system and everything, and realize, man, you might be expendable. You might not be touched. You might not be the special person that you thought you were, right? And I think it takes sometimes humbling people before they can become that, sports announcer that's, giving the sports statistics and is married and has kids and stuff and is happy. They're going to be that, that immature, absent-minded, young kid who struggles to operate socially like somebody who operates in reality, because these players are given too much power too soon. They don't really operate in the same reality that you and I do. They really think that, you know what? I've been told since I was a kid, I'm great. I've proven I'm great. I made it here. Look, I'm still young. I'm in my 20s. I made it all the way to the top of the top. I'm making millions. I got all these women. So they don't really operate in the same reality as we do, having learned about society and how you're supposed to operate in social settings. So these guys tend to think that because I've been, so special and so gifted my entire life, that means that I get whatever I want. So then they tend to treat people differently. They tend to treat the women they're around differently. That's why, I can speculate on why rape allegations get thrown out as well. It can be, money hungry women, but a lot of it can also be these guys not being socially cultivated to understand how to operate intelligently around women. I think a lot of them operate very archaically around women because they don't know any better. It's not really that they don't know any better, but it's not really been instilled in them that you can't be like that. I know you got all this money and this fame and all these girls follow you, and for the most part 98% of these girls just give it up to you, but that 2% that don't, you gotta watch yourself, bro. So I think there's that. But then I also think that there's how can I say it? I also think there's the group of, I'm sorry, what was the second half of your question again? I'm sorry.
The second half was the importance of differentiating what the alpha is.
Yes.
And what it isn't, basically. Like I said, if you have to big yourself up,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or is it insecurities? Is it lack of maturity? A combination.
Okay.
Because we see and hear a lot of that, and then you were going into, as it relates to NFL players and the money and the prestige and the women.
Yeah, so I think with the NFL players, it's not them bigging themselves up. It's society bigging them up before they're mentally mature enough to handle that level of power. A lot of times when they steer off in the wrong direction. As for the guys who get into, and it's really guys that are red pilled and don't know how to process the red pill. And it usually happens to guys that are just red pilled. Like they'll get the red pill and they go through stages. When they're just red pilled, they go through stages of anger, where they're upset that they've been lied to their entire life about a particular thing, or they've been experiencing a particular anger from a group, from a different demographic. Let's say like men get red pilled and they realize, damn, I've been treated this way by women my entire life, and this is all I had to learn to understand that this is how they operate, and they get upset. And then those men turn that anger into, well, you know what, I'm gonna be an alpha now. I'm an alpha now, and I'm not gonna allow them to treat me like that anymore. And anytime a woman like shows a hint that she's starting to treat me like that, I'm gonna be an alpha. I'm gonna tell her, you know what, I'm an alpha. You don't treat me that way. And I think that's where that comes from. They keep pushing their chest out to men and women. They keep pumping their chest out to to signal that, hey, I don't want you to treat me that way, and the reason you shouldn't treat me that way is because I'm an alpha. Instead of going out and creating the elements that prove that they're an alpha, so that that person can validate them by not treating them poorly, they just say they're an alpha over and over and over again. And that doesn't work. Society will tell you you're an alpha by not treating you like a beta. When society treats you like a beta, more than likely that's what you are. Because society is who determines your value. And if society is constantly saying, rejecting you, like women are constantly rejecting you, you go on dates, the women never call you back, you go on a date, you pay for it, the girls never call you back, the girlfriend owns you, you know, like the girl like laughs about you to her friends, they're validating what your status is. So you have to go out and create the success as a man. It goes back to what I just said. Men are made, women are born. You have to make yourself into a success object for women to desire, for men to desire to be around, and then you can call yourself an alpha. But the best thing about that is you don't have to call yourself an alpha. They will have validated. So these guys out here that are constantly calling themselves alphas are more than likely beta. Because who else is calling you that? Like, and I often ask them, like, what women are calling you that? Like, do you have a wife? Like, is she calling you that? Like, if a woman has married you, especially if she's married you and bore your seeds, that's proof. Like, do you have the receipts, bro? Like, if you don't have the receipts, you're probably a beta. And you just keep telling yourself that as the lazy way of trying to get validation. When the best way to do it is go out and do the work. Go out and do the work. You can get mad at Andrew Tate all you want. Andrew Tate got canceled. You can get mad at him all you want, but he gave the recipe. You know what you do? You want people to start looking at you, go out and buy a Bugatti. But before you buy the Bugatti, you had to do the work to get the money to buy the Bugatti. But the Bugatti is going to validate that. The house is going to validate that. The sports cars are going to validate that. You know, the Versace, the Gucci, whatever, it's all going to validate that. And then once you get to that level, I guarantee you people will stop treating you like a beta. You throw a house party, you invite 100 people over, I guarantee you people will stop treating you like a beta. Word will get out. This dude ain't nothing to play with. And that's the gist of, like, the mindset, you know, because there is a mindset to it. You know, a guy who's an alpha is not sitting around in an echo chamber calling himself an alpha. He doesn't have an Instagram where he's constantly calling himself an alpha. I'm an alpha, I'm an alpha, I'm an alpha. He is doing the work. Like, his Instagram will show you the work. Like, I own a BMW, I own a Porsche. You know, like, my Instagram says the work. You know, I own a house, I have a wife, I have children. You know, like, my Instagram says the work. I run my own business. But I don't even have to say these things. These are just things that I will present online as proofs, as the message. Like, the message you need to get here, I will show you. But I don't need you to validate that, because I have people around me in my own personal network that will validate that. So that's how that works. As far as from an immature mindset with football players who are already alphas, you're already a proven alpha if you're an NFL player, but you have to have the mindset that'll keep you from losing that place. Because so many times you'll see football players that are proven alphas physically. They're physical specimens. They're proven alphas. Everybody around them wants to be around them. Everyone wants them. But their mentality in social settings, not their mentality in competition. Their mentality in competition is alpha energy all day long. Their mentality in social situations proves that they are not on that level. They are beta on that level, because a lot of times they can't control their emotions. They get in fights a lot, or they get into really terrible situations with women. And an alpha's not going to do that. So they need guidance. But a lot of these corporations manipulate these young kids in hope that they can get over on them by paying them less money and making them do more work so that the overlords can get billions of dollars. It's a really intelligent scheme. Like, I don't take anything away from these guys. They're intelligent as hell. I think it's a horrible way to get money, but it's intelligent. But as far as the guys on the internet that are talking about their alphas, the incels, the MGTOWs, the black pills. I don't know if you've heard of that term, the black pill guys. These guys.
Absolutely not. Can you explain that? I've never heard of the black pill.
Yeah. So yet another negative phrase or word that has the term black in it. Like, I hate that they do that. Black male, black magic, black pill now. But yeah, there's a term black pill that refers to incels and MGTOWs. The word incel means involuntarily celibate, typically males. MGTOW means men going their own way, basically men that don't want to deal with males anymore. A lot of these guys advertise men getting sex dolls. Get a sex doll. A sex doll don't talk back. She don't cheat on you, etc. That's the weakest shit ever. Like, that is like the weakest, most loser shit you can ever do as a man, is freaking say all your problems are because of women, and that all men need to do to be happy is go out and fuck a damn rubber sex doll. That's terrible. Men, don't do that. If you're on this YouTube watching, listening, don't ever do that. Don't ever even consider that. Women are beautiful. Women are awesome. Women are naturally looking for a man to be awesome. And all you have to do is be inspired by that. Be inspired by that, man. Like, I don't call women gold diggers. I don't call women shallow because they want better. Basically, they want a man who's better than them. Like, I want a man who earns more than me, who's stronger than me, who's bigger than me, who's taller than me, who's more aggressive than me, who dominates. Everything about a woman's nature says she wants to be dominated by man. And all you have to do is man the fuck up. Go out and do the work. If you're not tall, so what, man? Go to the gym, get built. Go get a career and make tons of money. Go dominate the finance realm, like, etc. But black pill are guys that have just basically given up on women. They're just like, you know what? Women are the cause of all my problems. I'm giving up on women. A woman's hypergamous nature won't allow her to accept me as a man. She doesn't have to accept you. Nobody has to accept you. If you're a loser, you're a loser. That's one thing about a man. A man who has nothing, society validates him by calling him a loser. A man who has nothing, has done nothing to elevate himself, or like productivity-wise in society, is called a loser for a reason. It's the same reason a woman's called a slut when she goes out and gives away all her value to men who gave her little or nothing. It's just like going into a Louis Vuitton store and paying full price for a Louis Vuitton bag when the person who just walked out of the store got it for free. Like, why would you do that? So these incels and these MGTOWs are mad because society has validated their value by calling them losers, and by basically like, these women basically don't even call them losers. They just don't give them the time of day, because they shouldn't. They should want better, and that should push you to want better for yourself so that you can get whatever you want. You can get the cream of the crop, because that's really what, as a man, that's really what having money, status, looks, etc. does for you. It allows you to let the cream rise to the top. When you don't have nothing, it's slim pickings for you. You have to settle for whatever you can get. But when you have created money, status, wealth for yourself, you can afford to get the cream of the crop, and you can really determine who it is better. You can determine who it is better. And these black pill guys, they don't want to do the work. They're just guys that are just lazy. A lot of them, if you look at their YouTube, like just YouTube black pill or Google black pill. No, YouTube black pill, and go on their YouTubes and look what they look like. Look what they're doing with their lives. A lot of them, they're gamers. They sit at home gaming and just like in an echo chamber talking to other guys just like them. Yeah, fuck these bitches. Yeah, that's why I'm black pill, bro. Like, it's terrible. It's terrible. And those are the guys who shoot up schools. Not guys like myself. Not guys like Fresh and Fit podcast. If you watch that. Not guys like Rich Cooper. We're not the guys that shoot up schools. We're not. Because we're the jocks. Like, we're the guys who understand that competition is healthy. Like, humans compete in order to expand our evolution. Everything about evolution is competition. Like, even engineering. Even my man whose cousin was in STEM, you understand when you're in that field, it's all about competition. Like, when I was in that field, I was a beta, because those geeks in that damn field were out competing me. And I was too old to be in that field with these young kids coming straight out of high school, great memory retention, that had just come out of their AP classes. I was coming out of community college. I think I was 24 at the time, going to UCLA, 24, 25, going to UCLA with kids fresh out of high school, 18, some of them 16, 17 in university, man. And we're doing linear algebra. We're doing all kind of freaking advanced mathematics. And I'm just like, nah, I don't have the time. I got a job. I don't have time to study. I had 2 jobs at the time. I had to travel. I was making up all sorts of excuses to why I could not compete with it. And instead of making excuses, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to leave this realm to these geeks, because this ain't my realm. I'm not competing in this realm. Like, it's not my realm. Maybe when my business is self-sustaining and is running itself, maybe I'll go back to school for engineering or something like that, to be a mechanical engineer. Like my sister went for my other sister, actually an architectural engineer. But right now, no, I'm doing really great for myself. So I don't really need it. But black pills, stay away from them. You might see them in your comments. Like, they might even subscribe to your channel just to follow you. And black pill men have just given up altogether. And you don't want a man like that, especially as a woman. You don't want a man like that, man. You really don't. And guys, you don't want anyone like that in your circle. Come out of your circle. Get rid of them.
Absolutely. YouTube, I'm not sure how much you've been on it. I'm trying to get into the more positive platforms. And as I do that, there's a portion now where I don't know if it's just a trend and it will fly and die over, but there are many that come together, and the majority of the conversation is something negative against our own people. Day in and day out, where nothing, in my opinion, positive is gleaned, where you can actually release it to your communities where they can gain something from that. Do you see that dying down? Or, as you say, just ignore it and go elsewhere, or just run?
I see it dying down because both sides of the spectrum, like feminists, tend to shun black pill guys and people who are constantly attacking. Let's say, I'll give you a prime example. No, it's not really an example, but there was at time a really heated debate whether or not Kevin Samuels, rest in peace, whether or not Kevin Samuels, the black godfather of what I call the red pill, whether or not he hated black women. And for a time, like, I was analyzing his work, and like I started coming to the conclusion that maybe he does at some point in time. I think early on when I started watching these videos and stuff, his talking points were really harsh, and that's the thing. And at the time when I started watching him, I was had just been red pilled, so I was still in that anger phase. But the truth tastes nasty. And when you're just been red pilled, all of the truth tastes nasty to you. It just seems aggressive and gross. And what he was saying, although it tasted nasty, made a lot of sense. And then I saw something profound that he was doing. He was only really mentoring and coaching Black women. And he was actually successful in helping a lot of his clients and the people who followed him find marriage and love. He was being productive with his criticism. He was being constructive with his criticism. A lot of people were being destroyed by it, but anyone who knows construction understands that in order to build, you must first destroy. So he was destroying these narratives that a lot of these Black women were coming to him with that were just nonsensical, that had never worked for them before. He was destroying them, and he was helping build them back up. And like he would often say, even if I talk to 50 women, and out of them 50 women, 40 of them hate me and walk away hating me and thinking that I hate all Black women and I was out to destroy them. 10 don't, and 10 I help find love and happiness. I just help 10 people find love and happiness that I would never have otherwise done. So I think with some of those people, you have to discern, like, are they actually constructively criticizing in order to destroy and help build a new narrative for our community, or are they just coming like Sambo and echoing bad stereotypes that were helped created by a different community to destroy our community? You know, you got to kind of discern them, and I tend to think that I have a good grasp on when I'm reading comments or when I'm hearing somebody talk, knowing whether or not they're for us or against us. Because
what I'm speaking of is absolutely the latter.
Okay, against. So those people that speak, those people that speak like that, the best thing I can give those type of people, is like no time of day, because we have, as in our community, we have too many things that are more important than to give those type of people our ear. It's like trying to get and stay off the plantation, but still listening to the house Negro, like, who's talking from the porch, telling us to come back on the plantation. It's like, nah, bruh, like, we're not listening. You know, like, we don't care. And once they start talking like that, you know, at some point it's self-hate, and you know, at some point it's also failure. You know, because when a person who has become successful and made a life for themselves would never reach back into the community they come from to destroy it, because they've built and created so much for themselves that they would only benefit by telling their community, hey, because you look like me, we come from the same place, like, let me show you how I got it. And I think it's only people who think, like, I think it's only the people who think that, okay, because I think it's the people who are transitioning with it. And I know anecdotally in my life, I've seen it with a buddy of mine. All he would ever do was talk trash about Black women. And he comes from Compton, South Central. And I would always be like, man, dude, how could you talk like that, bro? Like, you're talking about your own community, you're talking about your mama, you're talking about your sister, you know, like. And he's like, I don't care, bro. Like, I grew up around it. I know this is how it is, yada, yada. And I'm like, yeah, true, but what are you doing to help the situation if you know it's like that, bro? Like, it's one thing to be educating or to be helping constructively, and it's another thing to just be tearing down and destroying, dude. You ain't no different than people out here talking about us, that we're deadbeats, or that we're lazy, or that we're the only good we serve is in prison. Like you ain't no different. You're just echoing the people who created the stereotype. And these people, they tend not to listen because they're in that transitioning phase where, okay, I made it out the hood. I got, to a particular place in my life where I'm around nothing but people who don't look like me, who are saying these things, and I'm allowing them to say these things around me to the point where I start echoing the same thing back to them and validating them. And that's where it gets dangerous. Is when, and this is, I'm just speaking from a Black perspective. This could be any other type of person. When you're a Black man around nothing but white folks or non-Black people, who you're allowing to say, racially biased opinions and uphold stereotypes about the people who look like you and who come from the place you come from. When you're allowing them to do that, you are cultivating an environment for that to grow. And in doing so, you end up getting pulled into that where you start thinking that they're right. And I think my friend, who is a friend of mine, he's a good friend of mine, he no longer thinks like that. He no longer talks like that. And I think that was my job. God put me in his life to be that for him, to wake him up out of that. He got to the point where that's all he would do was echo the talking points, basically the racist people. I'm just like, dude, you sound stupid. And at some point, like, you gotta, if they're not your family or your friends and you can save them, you gotta let go. Let go of it. Just don't even give them the time of day. Don't give them the platform. If they're in your comment section, just keep them out your comment section. If they're on your Instagram, just keep them out your Instagram. If they are your friends and you can't turn them or you can't convince them that their opinions are cannibalistic, just detach yourself from them. They're not worth your time. I'll end that by saying there's a quote that I heard Richard Cooper say. He says conserve your fucks, because your fucks are your life. And basically what he's saying is anything that stresses you out or you know will trigger you, stay away from those things as much as you can until you can get those triggers in check. And then if they're around you, still keep them at distance. And he gives an example. He says, like, you only have a certain amount of years to live, you only have a certain amount of fucks to give until your day is completely ruined by giving a fuck. He said you can go out throughout your whole day, your day's going great. You open up your Facebook or your Instagram and you see that one person you were just talking about on there just shitting all over our people. For no good reason, no productivity in it, no constructive criticism, etc. No answers being given to the problem. If you engage that person rather than just pick them off your platform, you're giving your fucks now. And that might not go well. That might snowball. More than likely it will, because this person is ignorant and they're stuck in their ways. And you're going to keep giving them your fucks, and it's going to snowball until you're stressed out and your cortisol levels in your brain have dumped all into your bloodstream and have literally taken years off of your life. Because that's what cortisol does. I kind of teach people about that when I tell them about healthy dose of wine and particular supplements like ashwagandha. But you literally just had a cortisol dump that's taking months, days, if not years off of your life. So rather than engage...
Absolutely. Please repeat that, because there are so many that one person will say something and then the other person will go right back and respond. I mean, I agree, you should defend yourself, but when does, okay, this is going to continue backwards and forth. When does that end? Should you be, if you're alpha, should you be the one to say, I've said what I need to say, or I've said what I've said, that's it? Or, because you know people agitate.
Yeah.
Do you continue this backwards and forth? Because as you said, it literally, and physically you can see it. The person may not be able to see it, but others absolutely see where, my God, you age quickly.
Quick, 100%. And the people who you're engaging with, man, the people who you're engaging with are enjoying this. So they're not getting the same cortisol dump as you. Because these, mind you, these people who are stuck in this mentality, all they're seeking to do is cut people down. That's it. They're not seeking to lift people up. What you're doing when you engage them is trying to lift them out of this mentality. You're trying to lift them up. And it's not working. It's like trying to lift something you know you can't lift and it's too heavy. The same effect happens to you when you do that. When you do that in the gym, the stress hormone is released in the gym as well. If you're trying to lift something too heavy, it's detrimental on you. And somebody like that is like something too heavy to lift. Your best bet is to just walk away from it, and that way it's too heavy to lift. I ain't there. I'm not prepared for that. I don't have time for that. Here, that's how I look at it. Unless they engage, unless it's their first comment, and their first comment is something that is worth engaging. Maybe I'll give you an example. One particular soundbite I hear on YouTube channels and something I see in comments a lot is that black women, the majority of black women are loud and disagreeable. And I think that is upheld by media. I think the women that they cast in movies uphold that, and I think they do that on purpose. That's why I say a lot of how black people are viewed is the responsibility of white media, white-run media companies. It wasn't like that back in the 90s, but it is now because those companies got pretty much bought out and pushed to the trade by white media companies. But these stereotypes are upheld. So people see what they see on TV, and then they compare it to what they see in real life, and they automatically think all of black women are like that. And they don't give any exception. Now, I am one to say you shouldn't count on the exception. You should count on the majority of what you see, and then tiptoe along the way based on that. But what are you doing to help change that narrative is what I'm saying. Because I know that not to be true for all black women. I know that. Black women have, just like everybody else, a myriad of different types. And especially if you're the right one. I just think, honestly, black women out of all women are least likely to settle for short change. Does that equate to them, needing to be more aggressive? I don't know. Maybe with their men, because their men earn the least. If you look at it per capita, I don't know. But what are you doing to help, productively change that narrative? Are you doing anything to change that narrative, or you just come here to tell us what the problem is? And in which case, if you just come here to tell us what the problem is, you sound like a female. That's what females are great problem stated. And whenever I see men like that who are online constantly talking about the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem, black women are this, black women are that, or black people do this, black people do that. Okay, you sound like a woman. Congratulations. How do we fix it? Be a man. Men come up with solutions. That's what I do with my Instagram. I offer solutions. I'm not here to state the problems over and over and over again. I might tell you the problem in one breath and then state the solution with the next, but I'm not just here to tell you the problem. That's what women are awesome at doing. If you ever want to find what the problem is with anybody, ask a woman. Ask a woman. That's my belief. Ask a woman. If you ever want to figure out how to solve it, ask a man.
absolute gems. This has been amazing, and will fall right in line with what we have planned. So again, thank you so much. I've placed your information in the chat, and I think you already have a couple of new subscribers over at Instagram. And if you haven't, if you don't mind, please subscribe to this channel. And if you're available on Wednesday to listen to our new podcast, Seeds of Life, co-hosted by Iceberg Thoughts, and then the following week we will begin our regular podcast. And again, invite has been extended to you to be the first guest if you're available.
Hey, I will definitely keep it in my schedule for sure. Keep in mind, absolutely. I'm all about this consciousness, raising the consciousness.
Yes, and again, the premise is planning, preparing. The bottom line is self-preservation. And we've spoken about a myriad of different topics, but they all fall in line to, again, uplift, edify, motivate, inspire, not just gender, race, ethnicity specific, but collectively, because at the end of the day, we all bleed the same. There's no getting around that.
No getting around that. Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I hate to say it, some of us do more harm to each other than other people, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And you couldn't have hit that on the head better. And I think that's the reason why when other people harm us, it's more sensational than when we harm each other, because it happens more often. It's not sensational. People look at it as, oh man, that's usual. It's black on black crime. Isn't that always happening? But when other people step outside of their community to harm us, it's sensational because it doesn't happen as often. And I think that's telling as to where we need to be focused. We need to stop focusing on these sensational stories they're the anomalies. They don't happen as often. Sure, yes, there's racism out there. It happens, and it happens, it's brutal, and it shouldn't be happening. But we need to focus on our community first, man. Like what we're doing to one another. We're doing that more often than not. It's like Tupac said. He said, it's more black than white than smoke crack tonight. He said, the only time we heal is when we kill each other. They still to be real time to heal each other. Like it's really been a thing since before my time, you know. And it's sad that we allow media to divert our attention to the anomalies. When the best way to cure something is to focus on what cures the most, what cured the most people versus what cured sometimes, you know. And we're over here focusing on like what happens sometimes versus what happens all the time. That is most detrimental. What's happening in our household, that's most detrimental. Not what's happening outside our household that happens less. We need to be focused on home and what's happening the most and what we're doing to one another. And that's the most important thing. And when we start focusing on that, you're going to see a shift in the way the government operates. Because anytime we did that in the past, you saw with the Panthers with Bobby Seale and Huey Newton and all them, when we got together and started helping one another and started focusing on our communities and told everyone outside our communities, look, we don't need your help. We can police our own communities. We can feed our own communities. We can educate ourselves. We don't need you. What did they do? They started inserting people in our communities to disrupt that. And that's exactly what they do. They do it with gangs. They do it with informants. They do it all the time. You know, they insert people when they see us coming together as a community and focusing on the bigger problems and not dealing with the stuff that happens very little. They insert people to disrupt that. And I think we need to
absolutely plant. And plants could be your neighbor, Plants could be the one that's sitting next to you during Bible study or Sunday school. Plants could be your teachers or instructors. Plants could be your employers. Plants could be your best friend.
Yep. Right. 100%.
Well, I am not going to keep you any longer. It is 2:00 here on the East Coast. Not sure what time it is there, but happy Labor Day to you.
Happy Labor Day. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And thank you. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out. And I'm glad that I saw you on ALB's live the other night. He's extremely powerful. I've seen him before, but last night, I believe it was, when he did the trailer and the overview, I had no idea all of that information is in this biopic. So I'm very excited to see that. Do you know if he's going to be having a watch party with that?
I don't know. I can't imagine. I can't imagine it would be. It might be a paid watch party. I don't know if it would be.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not 100% certain though.
Okay, well, we will definitely keep in touch. And again, all of your information is there. I'm sure after this and the explanation that you've gone into, you have some people hitting you up. So we will connect again. And
if I don't, I know I touch some people.
I'm sorry?
I say, even if I don't, I know I touch some people. I see some comments where, we were vibing, man, and that meant a lot.
Oh, well, thank you. It meant a lot for you to take the time out and explain some of the things I didn't know, and we will speak again. You enjoy the remainder of your holiday weekend, and be safe, be well, and be healthier.
All right. Otherwise, you do the same. Thank you for inviting me on your platform, and you do the same. Be blessed, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Take care now, sir. All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.